Boom. Hey, folks. Good evening. It's another fine day. I hope everyone's got their solo cups here for evidence collection. um, yeah. This trial has been a little wild so far. um, so this one is it's getting a little bizarre, and some people are saying like they're just tuning out because they can't that they can't sort of focus on what's going on because it's getting kind of repetitive in the sense of like, why are they telling us all of this stuff that's all of the same thing? And um yeah, I think the jury's probably in the same place there. The jury is probably thinking a lot of the same things, like, why are we here? What is going on? When are they going to actually try to prove their case? Because right now, we are, with what's in evidence, we can conclude that John O'Keefe died. We don't actually have anything at this point to tell us how he died, which is, I think, a bit of a problem. Like, why do we not have that yet, right? Why don't we have that down? Normally they would be getting to that first, like, hey, we would at least, I was expecting that we'd have some medical evidence by this point to tell us, hey, he died by, I'm guessing their theory is blunt force trauma caused by vehicle collision, right? That seems to be where their theory is going, but they haven't actually shown that that was the cause of death at this point. They're just, right, they found him dead in a snowbank. That's all they've got. So, I mean, if I'm on the jury, I'm kind of going like, what the heck? Yeah, hypothermia is part of it, but like, why is he there, right? How's he, what's the chain of events? We've got that it was snowing. They've established snow. So yeah, let's have a watch. Hezo one says boom, boom. I love that you chose Clamato for the solo cup. I mean, it's got the right sort of tone to it. That's a little morbid. I just wanted to drink some Clamato, to be honest. Tracy Fagan, thank you for the YouTube membership. Or rather, it's a yeah. So it's a canned Caesar. It's not the best. So red solo cup. I fill you up. Let's have a party. Thank you so much, NJ Kathy. I can't sing any more of that because that's the rest of my brain here. Some people asked, what am I drinking? It's just a canned Caesar. It's not super good, but it's a lot easier than making my own Caesar right now. So I can open a can of this without any issue. I saw a question in the chat way back when that I wanted to pull up. Tiffany E says, Runkle, I have questions. We now see their taillight cover is missing before the CW got to it. The Commonwealth. Can't wait to see how the defense explains this. The thing is they took a lot more taillight cover than was broken off, and we don't actually, I think, know exactly when that thing was taken that shows the broken taillight. So yeah, I just don't know that exactly. Somebody says, what is a Caesar? So a Caesar is kind of the Canadian equivalent of the Bloody Mary. So it's vodka and Clamato. And so Clamato is, instead of like the tomato juice, it's, and you're going to hate this, it's tomato and clam juice mixed together. And then they add spices and so forth. I like them better than a Bloody Mary. They've got a bit of umami to them, but people often get sort of turned off by the clam element. Against the Tide says, please like to help Ian reach his pro bono goals and potentially criminal. Hey, Sean says, paper bag, what the Canton PD are qualified to use. I am shocked at the level of ineptitude that we have in this whole trial. Like, it is just something. So let us go to, I guess, the fourth best lawyer that we've seen. The first three would be the defense team. The fourth best lawyer is this fan in this trial. And the fan's doing a great job. So, yeah, that's... the fan is probably also the best police officer that we've seen so far.
All persons having any business before the Honorable Beverly Canoni, Justice of the Norfolk Superior Court, in for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Court is now open. You may be seated.
That bailiff has quite the accent. Like, we've heard a variety of accents. I think he had the with his hear ye, he had the strongest accent we've seen thus far. So, yep.
22117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. Can I have counsel identify themselves for the record?
Adam Lally for the Commonwealth. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Lally.
Good morning, Your Honor. Laura McLaughlin for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Ms. McLaughlin.
Your Honor, Alan Jackson from Ms. Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
Good morning, Your Honor. Elizabeth Little, also on behalf of Ms.
Good
Reed.
morning, Ms. Little.
And good morning.
I don't know that this is the case, but one defense lawyer handling the more credible witnesses and the other handling the sus ones, because they've all been sus thus far. None of them are non-sus.
Good morning, Your Honor. David Yannetti for Karen Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Yannetti. Good morning, Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors. So I apologize for the delay this morning. What I'm going to start doing, we don't want to keep you folks waiting, and sometimes there's traffic or other reasons that we're delayed. Rather than reporting at 8:20 in the morning, I'm going to let you report at 8:30. Okay, we'd rather you have us waiting than we have you waiting. So I do have to ask you those three questions. Was everyone able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we
Hey, Vez from Quebec. Good to see you.
Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case?
Yes.
Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read any?
So she's going to ask this literally every single day of the proceeding, because, you know, it's basically just, have you been following this online? And no, they shouldn't. Rob says, the number of times I've heard Ian ask bartenders if they have Clamato so he can have a Caesar. Several and too many. It is true. When we were in Vegas, we I may have had a few Caesars. So, and I may have made Rob drink one. He didn't like it. He didn't care for
Anything
it.
about this case since you left yesterday?
All right. So,
Sir, can you raise your right hand one more time? You saw it.
Okay. Good morning. Right. We all set?
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Good morning, Sergeant.
Good morning.
I agree. They're not as good when they're out of a can, though.
Sergeant, you are familiar with the key swipe system at the Canton Police Department.
Yes.
Could you explain to the jury how that works?
So police officers are issued looks like a credit card. I have it in my wallet. Anytime I enter or leave the police department,
They do not.
the exterior
No.
doors going out the back there's a key scan. You put up to it to unlock the door to come in. When you leave, you don't have to go in, but if you need to go into the booking area, you have to scan yourself in and out. And to get out of the sally ports, you have to scan in and out.
Why is he asking about the key scanning system? Well, because a big issue on all of this is that, well, the evidence has been left in the sally port unattended, and anybody could have gone up to it. So the question is like, how much, if any, sorry, Rob, did they limit access to the evidence that's in a bag sitting there? And the answer is none. Now, the other question you might be having is, why is this guy up again? Why do we have him again? Well, the reason why we have this dude here again is because they weren't done with him. They just, like, they didn't end his testimony and call a new witness. They paused his testimony in order to conduct the voir dire. So his testimony, he's still been technically on the stand this whole time. You know, he's been the witness this whole time. They just went and had this little bit of the voir dire. So this guy's testimony was never actually concluded. That's why we get him back, because I saw a lot of comments about, why is this guy here again? I thought we were done with Mr. Leaf Blower. No.
Okay, and just trying to keep your voice up so that
Yes,
these
sorry.
last few jurors can hear you. How many officers?
So they're saying we can't hear you, but the one thing I really appreciate is you see how the mic has been moved all the way down. It's like somebody heard that we were talking about how much he was breathing into the mic and just kind of moved that away so that he couldn't like get his nostrils around it. Because the last time he was testifying, there were so many nostril noises. It was something.
On your department have those keys that can be swiped?
I would believe all of them.
Okay.
Everybody's
And how
got the
many-
keys.
Or strike that. Do you know how this information is stored at the Canton Police Station?
I do not. I don't know the software, but I believe it's recorded anytime we would come and go.
Okay. And you
And of course it's recorded. I'm guessing like 99% of the time. Nobody actually checks those logs. But like, if sometimes evidence might go missing or something like that, in which case they would check the log to see like who could have done it. If they have like a kilo of heroin that they seize as evidence and it somehow turns into like, 10 grams of heroin that was in evidence, they will probably pull those logs and have some conversations with those officers. Melanie Paré, je travaille pour faire venir Ian Ruggles de Bailey au Québec pour notre plaisir à tout. So I'm hoping we can make that happen. All right. And
say you
hey,
believe
Court
that it's
TV.
recorded at the time that the information is obtained. In other words, somebody key swipes in and that information is then stored, you believe, at the Canton Police Station?
I don't know the software, so I wouldn't be able to give you an educated response to that.
And do you yourself, as a sergeant, have access to the key swipe data, or is that limited to certain officers at the department?
I don't believe I have access to that. I've never accessed
You've
it.
never accessed it. Okay. Your Honor, we do have a stipulation between the parties, if the court will accept it, to introduce the key swipe records from January 29th of 2022.
Okay.
I would offer that as the next exhibit.
Any objection, Mr. Lally?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Are they subject to redactions?
Yes, we have redacted them. The court can certainly take a look to make sure that.
Have you all agreed to the redactions?
May we approach Justice to that?
Yes.
So the court is they're gonna have a bit of a kerfuffle about this later, a fracas, because she's gonna be annoyed because they're gonna end up tendering the whole thing on it. So yeah, Rob, we'll get to some of that. All right, now they're on. And of course, we've got defendant cam and family cam, because what they're really here for is to have the camera pointed right in their face. Did they forget to turn the mics on?
Now took the stand
There we go.
today. Did you go over your report?
My police report?
Yes.
Yes.
Were you looking for anything specifically?
No.
How long did you take to review that report between yesterday and today?
Ah, bien.
I scanned over it.
A few minutes?
Sure. Yes.
Have you spoken to anybody about your report?
No,
Nobody from the Canton Police?
no.
You recall that I had asked you about the fact that one name had not been completely spelled out in terms of first name, right?
Yes,
And you had, I believe, indicated that Sergeant Lank was the one that altered that or added that to the report.
not altered. So he was the one that got those names. So when he entered his report, I believe he would enter those.
Okay, and so he entered that into your report, correct?
Anybody writes a supplemental, if you have the authorization, can enter who you speak to add those names. I only spoke to Ms. Roberts, Ms. Reed, and Ms. McCabe that morning.
Okay, but the report has your name on it, correct?
Yes.
Did you speak to anybody from the prosecution, either Mr. Lally or Ms. McLaughlin or anybody else from that office about this issue?
No.
You would agree with me that it is important when you're writing a police report to be transparent, correct?
Yes.
You want to be clear, correct?
Yes.
You do not want to mislead the reader into believing something that is not true, correct?
Yes.
Can I see P and Q for identification, please? Thank you, sir. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing you first P for identification. You identified that yesterday, correct?
Yes.
We went over with the jury the 5 bits of information that are up at the top of the report, starting with the incident number, correct?
Yes.
You had indicated again, incident 22-87-OF,
Yes.
call 22-449,
Yes.
date and time reported January 29th of 22 at 6:08,
Yes.
and the report date and time was January 29th of 22 at 8:24 a.m., correct?
Yes.
Reporting officer, Sergeant Sean Good, correct?
Yes.
I'd like to show you now what has been marked Q for identification. And you can hang on to P if you like.
So when they note, marked whatever for identification, that's, not yet an exhibit. It's just marked so that they can refer to the same thing the same time. And so let's talk a little bit. We'll get to a little bit here, but
those bits of information.
what they do here
First of all,
is
let me have you
what the
identify
hell?
Q for identification. I'm sorry.
Yes. I'm reading Q.
Okay, what is Q for identification?
Exhibit Q.
Right. What is the actual document?
We call this a face sheet.
Okay. And with regard to P for identification, that's also a face sheet, correct?
Yes.
They appear to be nearly identical, correct?
Correct, except I'm looking at the top right corner. One says 1/30/2022, and the next would be 10/25/2022.
That is the print date of the report, correct?
Okay. I don't know.
So regardless of when those 2 face sheets have been printed, ignore that. With regard to the information about the incident number and the date of the report and the date of the incident and the reporting officer, those appear to be identical, correct?
Correct.
Now, with regard to P for identification, which is the first report that you were shown, and you were shown that yesterday, and now you have it in front of you, there is a photo on the right side of that report, is there not?
There is.
Do you know what that photo is of?
It looks like the scene probably a couple days later when the snow had melted.
Okay. Does it look like a berm that was actually
Exposed?
uncovered by the officers on scene the very first day?
Yes. Are we looking at Q?
No, at
At
P.
P? Yes. P? Yes. It looks like the berm. Correct.
And then with regard to Q for identification, which again is the face sheet with the identical information, is there a different photo?
Yes.
What does that photo appear to depict, if you know?
It looks like the same area that Mr. O'Keefe possibly was found, I believe.
But
Those 2 documents, P for identification and Q for identification, those are actually your report, correct?
Correct. But can I explain?
Mr. Lally will, I'm sure, let you explain. At this point, I'm going to be asking the questions if you don't mind. Your Honor, I would offer into evidence as full exhibits both P and Q for identification. Just the face sheet.
Is there an objection?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, the objection sustained.
May we approach?
Okay.
Can I see those, please?
All right, let's get to them talking again. I want to talk about this, but they need to get to the part. And there's so many sidebars today. So many sidebars.
There's one.
Oh, I think the brother has an Apple Watch.
Questions you can ask while you wait for this.
I'm just getting the exhibit that I need, Your Honor. I appreciate it. All right, while I'm waiting for that, may I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
That witness box is so tiny.
Okay, I've placed a photo before you, Sergeant Good. Do you recognize what that depicts?
Yes,
What does it
The
depict?
brother of James O'Keefe.
I believe that's a photo of a piece of a taillight.
He was one of the
And
first
when
witnesses.
you say a photo of a piece of a taillight, you're obviously referring to a piece of a taillight allegedly found at 34 Fairview in Canton.
Yes,
Now, that photo is the photo that is included in Exhibit Q for identification that you previously saw, right? That's the second photo, is it not?
on the second face sheet that he gave me?
Yes.
Yes,
All right. And I'm showing you, if I may approach again,
Yes.
what has already been marked Exhibit 20A. Do you recognize that?
yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's the berm from that morning.
Okay, and Exhibit 20A is the photo that was in the first version of your report, which was P for identification, correct?
Yes,
I can take those back from you, sir?
Cool.
Just do it like that. Where's the envelope? Can you set that up? Published the two photo, I'm sorry. With regard to the first photo that you identified, which was the piece of taillight that allegedly was found at 34 Fairview, that was a fair and accurate representation of that photo, correct?
Yes,
All right. May I offer that, Your Honor?
Okay, there's no objection, Mr. Lally?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Exhibit 42.
22.
Okay, and I'm
I
sorry,
don't know
the
why
exhibit
they
number
keep
was
cutting the mic on and off as well.
42, thank you. May I publish 20A and 42 separately for the jury, Your Honor?
Okay.
Okay. 20A is, you've testified, the photo of the berm that was included in the first version of your police report, which was P for identification, correct?
yes.
All right. Let's put up 42, please. No. I'm sorry. Where is 42?
Right here.
I don't have it.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah.
No wonder. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Okay. The exhibit sticker's upside down, but, oh, there we go. That is the photo of the piece of taillight allegedly found at 34 Fairview that you have identified as Exhibit 42, correct?
Yes,
Now, having seen those photos, one was included in P for identification, one was included in Q for identification, correct?
yes,
Which you previously identified as your reports. Or report, I should say.
yes.
Your Honor, I would offer the top portion of P and Q for identification as a full exhibit.
Okay, and there's an objection from the Commonwealth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. It will come in, when the jury actually gets it, we'll have it on the same 9x12 paper that everything else is.
Perfect.
And all exhibits go through Madam Court Reporter.
Oh, of course.
That's proper. Nothing wrong with that.
So, jurors, I'm going to send you out for 5 minutes, okay?
Close your notebooks, leave them on the seats. Gather all your other belongings and follow me while we're at jury out.
oh, this is a headache when the recording is like, okay, we're gonna start, we're gonna stop, we're gonna start, we're gonna stop. Everything, like, just get some
Let's
questions
get
in.
these so that they're acceptable to go to the jury. I mean, this just came in with the whole report on it.
I'm sorry?
This just came into evidence with the whole report, and that's not what you agreed to at sidebar.
Right. I mean, I guess we didn't have scissors, but what I was going to do, because it's folded, all I was going to show the jury was the part that got in.
But these are now in evidence.
Understand?
Okay, and that can't happen. So
Understand.
fix them. Do we have scissors, Mr. Clerk? Thank you.
Okay.
So why don't you fix them, run them through a copy machine? All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess. And actually, this is probably a good time for me to say, and it's not just the defense, it's not just the prosecution, but we're taking an awful lot of these jurors' times. We're taking days and weeks. Let's not squander it by, repetitive evidence or taking time like this that we shouldn't need to take. Okay, let's move this case along. All right, I'll be out in 5 minutes.
All right, please.
All right. So I did see some people in the chat commenting about like, well, isn't somebody's liberty on the line? Yes. But I can tell you that judges will pretty much always give you some grief if things aren't moving along. They want stuff to move. But come on. Like, you guys have stalled and wasted time and all of this. And now you're given grief over it. I just don't see it. I don't like that she's chewing them out here. Like, just so yeah, now they have a 5-minute break and then she comes back.
Your Honor, can I have P&Q marked as the next exhibits in the trial?
Okay.
Yeah, and this is a good point. Like, the judge has let them go through the weather on every situation. Like, all right, and let them go through the shoveling of the apron on every situation and all of this. And now she's upset because, like, the paper is going to take a couple of minutes to cut. Okay.
Thank you.
And with the court's permission, I'd like to display these one above the other.
Okay.
Okay. Sergeant Good, you have previously testified about the details in these reports. You would agree that each of these reflects your report. It says reporting officer Sergeant Sean Good, correct?
Yes.
Each of these is page 1 of your report, correct?
Yes.
You've previously testified that you call that the face sheet of the report, correct?
Yes.
Each of these has the identical incident number and call number, correct?
Yes.
The identical date and time reported, correct?
Yes.
The identical report date and time, correct?
Yes.
And of course, the identical officer.
Yes.
Other than the print date of the face sheet of your report, one appears to be in January, one appears to be in October. The major change is the photo that's included on the face sheet, correct?
Yes. Can I explain why?
So that...
No, you can't explain why. You get to answer the questions. That's it. You get to answer questions that you were asked. And this is a big deal because these reports shouldn't be getting edited. There should be an edit log to the extent that reports are modified because, typically what I'll see is like a report and then they'll have like addendum to report, right? Like they'll add things, but it doesn't ever take away or change the stuff that went in there because you should have a log of what was changed, what was modified, and whatever. This is extremely suspicious that the report is getting tweaked to change what it shows.
With the piece of tail light that is included on the first page of your report, that photo is not from January 29th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
Huh,
You-
interesting.
Never took a photo of a piece of taillight on January 29th.
But you'll see that, there's this picture of the tail light. What's the date on it? January 29th, 2022. That's where this picture is from. Like, that's where this picture is. That's what it's marked as. And so if the defense hadn't done very good investigative work here, if they hadn't really dug into this, you could easily think that this tail light picture came from January 29th, 2022. And here we're hearing that it wasn't. Why is a picture that was not taken on the date of the 29th being, put in a report as if it was? This is a problem.
2022, correct?
Correct.
You never saw a piece of taillight at 34 Fairview on January 29th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
So that's an
Did
issue.
you personally switch the photo on the face sheet of your police report?
No.
Do you know who did?
So whoever updated the report, their supplemental, you add photos.
But in answer to my question, do you know the specific person from your department who altered the photo on the face sheet of your report?
I didn't take the supplemental report, so I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know who took the photo.
This is the other thing, is that anyone who's modifying these things, like typically the way you'll do a supplemental report isn't by modifying the original report. It's by adding another report to it, right? You add another one. So,
But given that this is your report, you're the reporting officer, you are responsible for the content of that report, are you not?
For my report, yes, not other officers' supplementals to an investigation.
All right, but this is your report. This is the face sheet for
I feel like the screaming goat may end up being my co-counsel for this trial.
the reporting officer, Sergeant Sean Good, is it not?
Yes, on the face sheet.
All right. Now, would you agree with me that someone reading this report and seeing that the date and time of the report is listed as January 29th of 2022 at 8:24 a.m., that's when you wrote it, correct?
That's when I logged in, yes.
Somebody reading that and seeing a photo of a piece of taillight,
I can virtually like the defense lawyer is saying somebody could easily confuse this for having been on January 29th. And I can virtually guarantee that on the first review of this report, that will have been what the defense team thought. I can and that it would have been later that they would have gone, wait a minute, that ain't right. That's not correct. So that's why he's upset here. That's why he's going, somebody could have confused this. Is I will bet money that the defense team originally thought that when they saw all of these disclosures.
might believe that that photo is from the same date that you're writing the report, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you think it's misleading to
The objection is that it's calling for speculation, right? Because the call there is like somebody could interpret this, right? And he's like, I'm not going to So that's a speculation objection. That's fair.
include a photo on the face sheet of the report when the report is dated January 29th, 2022, and the photo is not from that day, it's from sometime later.
Objection.
Sustained.
Is there anything on what is now marked Exhibit 44 on that face sheet that indicates the date and time that photo on Exhibit 44 was taken?
No.
Is there anything
Oh, hey, we got
on
subtitles.
Exhibit 44, that face sheet of your report, that indicates that it applies to some supplemental report that was later filed?
No.
The defense is getting to the confusion issue the long way.
I may have a moment.
Yes.
Nothing further, thank you.
All right, please take the exhibit down. And we need,
That pause that you hear where it's like, I need just a second to, that's really common. I think I've ended like every cross-examination almost that I do with that, where you're just like, Do I need anything else? The only time you're not really going to have that pause, is everything fine? Check is if you are ending it on a mic drop. Like sometimes you got a mic drop where you're just like, boom, walk away. And, but that's less common than you might think.
That exhibit, Mr. Yannetti.
Oh, yes, of course. We have two others as well.
Okay, the exhibits are to remain up here with the clerk.
With the clerk.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, go right ahead, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. So Sergeant Good.
So now we're on redirect. He's going to try to save this. Yeah.
Turning back to some questions you were asked yesterday in regard to Christopher Albert and whether or not he was a town selectman, is that correct?
Yes.
And he is currently, is that correct?
Yes.
And was he on January 29th of 2022?
No.
Oh man, no,
elected
I will
to
not
Board
be
of
going to
Selectmen
Canton.
subsequent to this date that you've been talking about, January 29th, 2022, correct?
Yes.
They're not specifying their objections because the court doesn't want them to. The court doesn't want them raising those issues in front of the jury. If they want to address the specifics, they go up to sidebar so the jury doesn't hear it. And yeah, that's that one. And apparently Yannetti had a hard copy of the original document from Reed's arraignment. That's how we knew that this one was doctored. Plus, the Commonwealth didn't hand this one over for 9 months. Interesting. So we'd get that one and be like, this doesn't look right.
Now, the location where you were directed to where Mr. O'Keefe had been located just after 6 a.m., where was that in relation to the property line between 34 Fairview Road and the home next door?
If I had to guess, probably 10, 12 feet to the property line.
Oh, hey, someone called the
Now, you were
cops
asking
about me. That's fun.
Having been to that residence at 34 Fairview Road prior, and you indicated that you had been there years ago with Sergeant Lang. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what was that in regard to, sir?
It was a hit and run investigation.
And who, if anyone, so why were you at that residence at 34 Fairview Road?
So there was a call for a motor vehicle crash at the corner of Dedham and Washington Street, and the suspect vehicle had fled the scene. Officer Lank was my partner that night. He followed the oil
we're
spill
going to get to
of the
Officer
vehicle
Lank.
down Dedham Street, up Cedar Crest, all the way down to the intersection of Cedar Crest to Fairview, and the oil spill actually drove into 34 Fairview, where we found the vehicle.
And who, if anyone, did you, through your investigation?
Yes, the
who, if anyone,
sidebars
did you
are
associate with
recorded.
operating that?
That'd be Tim Albert.
And was Mr. Timothy Albert, was he charged in reference to that incident?
Yes, he was.
And do you know approximately when that was?
It was in 2009. I don't know the exact date, but I know the year.
Now, as far as your report, you asked a number
Technically
of...
emailed and CC'd me, so yes.
I'm sorry, before I get to that, you had testified earlier that when you were leaving the scene, there was an amount of snow that had compiled on your windshield, correct?
Yes.
And after leaving the scene, what if anything happened with the snowfall sort of throughout the course of the day?
Our windshield was completely covered. We had to take time to clear off the windshields. It had snowed considerably.
Zora
And
and
then
Potter.
following that throughout sort of the course of the rest of the day in the afternoon, what if anything did you observe about the snowfall at that point?
It continually got worse.
Now, as far as your report is concerned, what you were shown and what you've seen, has there been any change as far as your narrative in reference to who you talked to, what they said, anything of that effect?
No.
You've been asked a bunch of questions about what you called a face sheet. Can you explain to the jury sort of what a face sheet is and sort of how that comes into being?
Easiest way, it's the top sheet of the report. It's not the actual meat of the report. It just gives you the date and time. Usually, if you can fit it on the front of the sheet, it would be the first party would be involved. If there was a suspect, defendant, and that's it. It would be their name, date of birth, social security number, all their personal information.
So as far as we're saying, sort of the meat of the report, it has no real relation to that, correct?
Correct.
Now, you were handed two exhibits or two parts of the report, and you were told to ignore the date that they were printed, correct?
Correct.
And so what, if any, significance would the date that they were printed have in relation to what's on a face sheet?
So in this case, there was supplemental reports done after the 29th. So those reports were added to my initial report. You can add a supplemental narrative. So if that includes meeting new people, talking to other people, or taking photos of anything you found, you would add that to our report, and it would be documented in the supplemental.
And you had offered, I believe, a couple times to explain to the jury sort of why a photo might be different from one face sheet when it's printed versus a subsequent date when the face sheet is printed. Can you explain to the jury at this time sort of why would that be?
So when that face sheet was printed, if photo number 1 was the top photo, and now there's a new photo added, that could be now the top photo on that face sheet when it was printed.
And how would that be something that someone would physically go in and do, or is that something that sort of within the system automatically occurs?
I don't know how the system numbers the photos. So we added our photos on January 29th, and then any photos subsequent to that were added. I don't know how the software would put them 1 through 20 or how many there were.
Nothing further.
Okay,
If I might.
very briefly.
So, I don't know that that saved anything there, right? I don't know that that moved the needle, but now they're having a bit of a tennis match. The thing is, the court doesn't usually need to allow a recross like this. So the court is going very briefly because the court doesn't want this to be a tennis match. Is sort of the usual line.
You had just talked about how Tim Albert was charged as a result of the investigation that you did years ago, correct?
Yes.
The evidence in that case, you would agree with me, was strong against Tim Albert for that crime, was it not?
For leaving the scene? Yes.
Sure. Sergeant Link actually was able to follow the trail of fluid from the accident scene right to 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes.
And Tim Albert admitted that he got nervous and left the scene, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, despite the fact that he was charged, are you aware that the case was just flat out dismissed upon restitution?
Objection, move to strike, Your Honor.
The objection sustained.
Nothing further.
Jurors, you're to disregard that.
All right, you're all set, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Who is your next witness, Mr. Lally?
Yes, Your Honor. Call Sergeant Michael Lang to the stand.
All right, so not yet. I'll see counsel at sidebar, please.
All right. So why is the not yet? Well, because she's going to give rulings, right? They had this whole, you remember how they had this whole voir dire last time? The big, now a lot of people might not have realized that bit where this witness, Mr. Lang, testified yesterday was not actually the trial. It was the voir dire. So the jury heard none of that, none of it. And so the judge is like, well, you're not just jumping right in. We've got to actually have our ruling on this and to see like I haven't told you what you can talk about yet. So that's where they're going. They're going to have a little discussion here, and then she's going to give a ruling on the parameters. Now,
to the voir dire yesterday,
before I said that that I thought that she was apparently giving the defense a break. I think she gives them a lot less of a break than she signaled she was going to. So we'll talk about that as we go through this.
Tell me exactly, based on the voir dire yesterday, exactly what you hope to get into.
Thank you, Your Honor. With regard to the voir dire yesterday, my intention is to closely mirror my questioning of Sergeant Lank with my questioning of him on voir dire. In other words, the fact of the fight, the fact of Chris Albert's involvement in the fight, the fact of his getting involved in the fight. We called officers to assist him. The specifics of the allegations of the Localito brothers as to his conduct, what they alleged he did, the part that he took in the fight, their subsequent release from the scene, going back into the Canton Police Department to file or lodge a complaint. The fact that they were turned away for the complaint, there was subsequent police reports filed, and the local.
So I don't have those, right? You didn't send them to us.
We got those. We got those
All
last.
right,
night.
it's okay. It's too late for the police reports, but go ahead and finish what you've got.
Right. Just so the court knows, as the court requested, we provided those to the judicial assistant last night.
Who's the judicial assistant?
Yep. Mr.
Is this Localito's?
Localito. Yeah.
Go ahead after the police report.
So basically, Your Honor, and I don't have any interest in introducing the police reports. I just need the timing. In other words, there was the fight, the complaint, the police reports were filed after the complaint, and then they were charged after the police reports. And then the subsequent resolution of the matter. The fact
So what do you mean by subsequent resolution of the matter?
they were adjudicated not guilty, and ultimately the subsequent witness intimidation request by Sergeant Lank was thrown out by the DA. With regard to what was brought up by Mr. Lally yesterday, I intend to include and elicit in my questioning of
This is their wish list of stuff they want to talk about here.
Sergeant Lank the issue concerning Tim Albert and the resolution of that issue.
Well, Mr. Yannetti just did that.
Well, he didn't because the court struck it.
Yeah. It should not have been done.
Well, Your Honor,
go ahead.
Respectfully, the Commonwealth left the jurors with a misimpression intentionally.
So
the last question was, and he was charged. That's true. He was charged. And then those charges were dismissed subsequent thereto.
Right, but this was specific. We should have, and it wasn't objected to, right? So Mr. Lally's question wasn't objected to. All right. So is that the end of what you intend to get into?
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Lally's question wasn't objected to. You struck all sorts of shit without an official objection. Now you're saying it wasn't objected to? Like you have... Ooh. There's a little bit of goose gander issues here. Because, yeah... And the thing is that if it was let in, then she should properly let it be corrected, or she should instruct the jury to strike that now. Like,
Mr. Lally, do you want to? You're objecting to all of this?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Do you want to be heard specifically on anything?
No, Your Honor.
All right. So what I'm going to allow you to get in
we're going to take this down to one time.
Relationship of Sergeant Lank with the Alberts. But keep in mind, Mr. Jackson, the Alberts are not all one entity. So you must do it individually. And simply because the witness had a relationship with Chris Albert doesn't mean that it has any bearing on favoritism or bias to Brian Albert or to Tim Albert. So you have to do them individually. I'll give you some leeway on the incident itself. But keep in mind the particulars of the fight isn't really what matters here. It's the fact of the fight and the intervening of Sergeant Lank on behalf of Chris Albert.
She's really micromanaging this, right? She's really getting into like, you can say it like this, but you can't frame it like this.
It's relevant to bias or favoritism. So if there are objections that you get beyond, you may be stopped. You can get when and where it happened, that it happened outside a bar where the witness had been drinking. He did not acknowledge your drinking buddy's comment, so you're not to specifically say that, where you just said you're going to outline what you did yesterday, and that this occurred in Canton. The role...
He didn't acknowledge it, so why can't they ask him again? Like, I don't get that.
If any, he had, and handcuffing or having the Lopolitos put in custody, and the fact that Mark Lopolito went to the Canton Police Department to file a report. What you cannot get into is the mobile gas station incident, because I didn't hear anything yesterday that the conduct of Sergeant Lank had anything to do with the Alberts. I'm not convinced that it wasn't merely self-interest on his part. So that's out. That was 22 years ago. Nothing. So you're not getting into the federal investigation that he was sued. I'm not letting you get into the not guilty because it's speculative. Who knows why he was found not guilty? Why they were found not guilty, you cannot get into that. There are all kinds of reasons people can be found not guilty. Whether I allow more depends on the testimony, the direct and the cross. So you are to go no further than that without leave of court. So the Commonwealth can then get into the animosity between the witness, Sergeant Lank, and Brian Albert because of the arrest of Tim Albert. But if Mr. Lally, if you open the door to something further, I need to be seen at sidebar before anybody can come get into that. So, Mr. Jackson, you did this in 10 minutes yesterday. I don't expect you to take 2 hours to do this. Okay. And just as an aside again, let's not waste the jury's time with repetitive testimony.
I don't intend to, Your Honor. I think I understand the court's, the parameters. The one thing I didn't hear the court say, but I think it was implied, but I want to make sure I'm clear. I can get into the fact that there was a complaint sought and then there were subsequent police reports filed.
Not the police.
Citation.
I didn't hear anything yesterday about the police reports. I haven't seen them. So that the complaint was sought and that subsequent to that, they were summoned and had to go to court.
And the dates of the police reports that were filed?
You can say the dates without saying the police reports.
How does that work?
So they went into the station to file a complaint. They were told they couldn't file a complaint on those 2 days, right?
Correct.
And then
She's basically directing the cross here. Yeah.
Witness did testify that he filed a report, but it was that he had told his sergeant the night before of this incident, and the sergeant said, you don't have to file a report until you come back or something like that.
So I'll just ask, were the reports dated after the initial complaint was requested? I can
Okay.
leave it at that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'll give you all a 5-minute break, and then we have to get going.
All rise for the court, please.
All right. So she's giving them a 5-minute break, and then we get back in court. It's a very short day today.
Court back in session, may be seated.
So, Mr. Jackson, you'll just alert me before you begin that line of questioning because I have an instruction.
Of course.
Okay. All right, Mr. Lally, your next witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor. The Commonwealth call Sergeant Michael Lank to the stand.
Okay.
Now, I'm just going to say, she tries to put all sorts of leash on the defense lawyer, and the defense lawyer manages to get around a lot of what she directs. And I think he outplays her here, but we'll see. I think he outplays her quite badly.
Just gonna ask you to be mindful to step up and remain standing.
You solemnly swear the evidence you give the court and jury in the case now and hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
Morning.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Michael Lank, L-A-N-K.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm a lieutenant with the Canton Police.
And how long in total have you been a member of the Canton Police?
Over 24 years.
And how long have you held the rank of lieutenant with Canton Police?
It'll be 2 years in August.
Now, prior to, well, let me ask you first, with reference to your responsibilities as lieutenant, if you could explain to the jury just in general terms, what are your duties and responsibilities as a lieutenant?
I oversee the gun licensing and patrol.
And prior to working,
This guy oversees the gun licensing. I already don't like him. So yeah, don't like him.
as a lieutenant, what was your role with Canton Police before that?
I was a detective sergeant
And how long were you a detective sergeant?
from September of 21 until August of 22.
And during that time frame as a detective sergeant, what were your duties and responsibilities with regard to Canton?
Now, a lot of this is gonna seem familiar. And the reason why it's gonna seem familiar is because this is the same, this is the same stuff. It's just now it's in front of the jury. now the jury is actually going to get to see this. And yeah, and Casey Cat, I don't know. We'll have to see. That could go either way. That could really go either way. Because, yeah. So what do I think will happen with Katie McLaughlin, who defense asked to put back on the stand? Judge said she'd rule by today, but she didn't. She said she'd rule before Katie Albert, or what's her name, Albert, got up. So, yeah.
To oversee the Detective Bureau, ensure that all reports were issued to respective detectives and completed.
Now, you're also familiar with the role within the Canton Police of a sort of shift sergeant, is that correct?
Yes.
And if you could explain to the jury sort of what are the differences between what a shift sergeant does and what a detective sergeant does?
Shift sergeant's primary responsibility is to run the daily shift, give out sectors to each of the cars, and dispatch cruisers to appropriate areas, so forth.
We're gonna move past like, sorry,
found. What if anything
we're gonna move past the whole "you're a police officer"? Yes, okay.
did you do with reference to that area?
I stood by and observed while Lieutenant Gallagher used a leaf blower to try to clear the top layers of snow off of the scene.
And at some point in time,
I'm just gonna say, if I was a police officer, I would want to have been in another state, and like asleep when that leaf blower thing happened. Like, you know, not only was I not there, I was, you know, asleep and drunk and dead, like whatever it is to just have as much distance. Yeah.
Well, that particular process, was that memorialized in any way?
Yes.
Okay, and how was it done?
In my report.
I'm sorry, beyond that, was there any sort of photos or video that were taken of that leaf blower process?
Yes. Sergeant Good was able to take video while Lieutenant Gallagher used a leaf blower.
And you've seen that video?
Your tax dollars at work, folks. We've got one police officer leaf blowering the evidence and another police officer taking video of the first guy leaf blowering the officer or the evidence. And then this guy standing around going, "That's good police work, boys."
Was that correct?
Yes.
And what's contained in that video, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of sort of what happened on scene that morning?
Yes.
Now, in addition well, let me ask you this, as far as the leaf blower was concerned, what was sort of the purpose of that, or what was the thinking behind that?
The purpose behind the leaf blower was to just take the top layers of snow off to reveal what was underneath and try to preserve any potential evidence.
And upon employing that, what, if anything, did you then observe in that area of the front lawn?
Ultimately, we were able to see what appeared to be blood drops in the snow, as well as a drinking glass, cocktail glass.
Now, in addition to the video that was taken with regard to the leaf blowing process, or the use of the leaf blower, were the photos that were taken of the scene as well?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have exhibit number 27. Sergeant Lang, what's up on the screen that's been previously marked as exhibit 27? Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize it to be?
I recognize that to be the scene that we were working with the leaf blower.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
So I'm handing you a laser pointer, basically. Just press on that button and point them.
Okay, thank you.
Lieutenant Lang, with using that laser pointer, if you could draw the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance you observe in this photograph in relation to what you saw on scene that time.
So it appeared to see blood drops here in the snow that had been revealed by wiping away the top layer, as well as the glass protruding from the snow.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down.
All right, so now we're going to get to see the glass. And this is something I found was interesting because they've described it as a cocktail glass this whole time. And when I think cocktail glass, I think martini glass. That's not what we're going to see. We're not going to see a martini glass. We're not going to see a solo cup either.
Now, at any point in time when you were on scene, did you have any contact or interaction with a person named Karen?
I did not.
Did you see her on scene at all that day?
I don't recall seeing her. I believe she was there while I was there, but I never spoke to her.
Now, following your initial conversation inside the home of 34 Fairview with Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, and speaking to Jennifer McCabe outside, who, if anyone else, did you speak with that arrived on scene that morning?
Matthew McCabe.
And when was it that Matthew McCabe arrived in relation to your arrival and when you spoke to the other people?
Matthew McCabe arrived just a couple of minutes after I had walked out of the house the first time.
And so when he arrived, where did you go?
Moments after he arrived, I went back into the house to speak with Mr. McCabe.
I actually said this. They would have done a better job by not doing anything and just standing there. Literally, I said this in the last live stream, which is that they would have actually done better if they'd just all gone and sat in their cars and drank. Like, if they just busted out the gallon jug of vodka in their cars and just, like, you know, that would have been better police work than what they were doing here. So, yeah.
And about how long a conversation was it that you were in the house when you were speaking to Mr. McCabe?
I'm not sure. I'd say maybe 5 minutes.
And over the course of that morning, about how many times did you go into the residence at 34 Fairview Road?
3.
Anyone ever tell you that you couldn't go into the home or that stopped you at the doorway or anything like that?
No.
And with reference to inside of the home, what, if any, observations did you make of sort of how it was situated, anything disheveled or anything like that?
Everything appeared in order.
And just if you know, what, if any, relationship does Matthew McCabe have to Jennifer?
Matthew McCabe is Jennifer McCabe's husband.
Now, turning back to what was just up on the screen in Exhibit 27, with regard to those items that you observed in the yards in the front lawn that day, what, if anything, did you or the other officers do with respect to those items?
The drinking glass was secured into an evidence bag, and the blood drops were secured into 6 solo cups.
And why were they secured into 6 solo cups?
We did the best that we could with the situation, with the weather and deteriorating situation. Lieutenant Gallagher was able to attain the solo cups from Lieutenant Kelleher's house, which was diagonally across the street.
Now, with respect to the CPAC unit,
That still just baffles me. It's like, yeah, we live nearby, so we went and got solo cups. Like, okay, that's a thing, I guess.
the phone call that you made to the state police, beyond sort of the jurisdiction of them having over unattended deaths.
And yes, they secured the evidence in the solo cups.
The state police have at their disposal with regard to crime scene that your department has done.
They have crime scene units that process crime scenes.
Now, with respect to those items, once they were secured, just in reference to the solo cups, beyond sort of just putting them into solo cups, what, if anything else, did you or the other officers do to secure those items specifically?
They were secured into a brown evidence bag.
And following them being secured, where did they go from there?
They were then, they were then placed into my truck at that point, my police truck that I was using that day, and ultimately transported back to the police station.
And transported back to the police station
by me.
And once you were back at the police station with those items, what, if anything, did you do with them at that time?
They were secured into temporary evidence in the refrigerated unit for the solo cups, and the glass was secured into temporary evidence.
And so when you say temporary evidence, why were they secured into temporary evidence?
They were secured into temporary evidence so that they could ultimately be turned over to the state police.
And as far as when you secure something into temporary evidence, just in general terms first, what is it that you do with that item to secure it or label it or anything else?
So it's assigned a property number, and we would print out a property label, and then that's assigned. It's assigned to the OF number, which is the report.
The OF stands for a report offense, is that correct?
Offense, yes.
So each report that you generate has a specific number with an OF following it?
That's correct.
And then that number is associated with the evidence that you secure, correct?
Yes.
Now, with reference to that evidence, whether it's temporary evidence or otherwise, what, if any, restrictions are there with regard to access to those items within your department?
So temporary evidence is accessible to all officers.
And to officers from your department, correct?
So this is important because this never goes into full evidence, right? This the bag of cups of blood never goes into full evidence. And the reason why it never goes into full evidence is because, well, I'd give you the full story, but it's basically clown noises and circus music for like an hour. So, but what we're hearing is that the temporary evidence was open to literally everybody. So, I like this. The temporary fridge was where everyone kept their lunches. I hope nobody steals lunches at that department, because somebody might have gotten the world's worst solo cup drink. Yeah.
From our department, yes.
And following that, are you aware, or what, if anything, are you aware of what happened with those items after you secured them into temporary evidence?
I believe they were ultimately turned over to the state police.
Hundreds of thousands, I'm guessing.
Mayor Coach Witness?
Yes.
I don't think it was really the lunch fridge. I hope it's not really the lunch fridge.
So I'm handing you up a box. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
Sir, don't sigh at us. Like, he's like,
Appears to be a box to secure evidence with a call number on it.
And is that a box that you've seen earlier today?
Yes.
And with reference to what's contained within the box, have you seen that this morning as well?
Yes.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would ask that the witness be allowed to take what's in the box out of the box. Okay. Sir, just for the record, you have some evidence gloves with you in court today, is that correct?
That's correct.
Sorry, sir, before you just go into that, just with reference to the bag that
can you not like dig in the bag without me asking? Now the gloves here are appropriate, but yeah.
have before you, what if any markings are on that relate to sort of your case?
That said, when you do have the evidence gloves on, so he's got the evidence gloves. What does he do?
Just with reference to the bag that you have before you.
We're just going to take this down to slow speed. Let's go to half.
What if any markings are on that relate?
Keep your thumb off your face. Don't touch your freaking face with the non-contamination. Let's make sure we get some touch DNA onto these, like, no touchy the face. At first at like 1 1/4 speed, I thought that thumb went like right up his nose, but no, he just sort of itches himself. But it's like, don't touch your face. Now you're getting touch DNA on your gloves, and then you're going to touch the evidence and contaminate it with that. The other thing, let's talk a little bit about fingerprints and gloves. So, everybody thinks that you can't leave fingerprints while you're wearing gloves, right? Like, the problem is that you can if you're wearing thin gloves, like, say, these kind of thin gloves. The way you can end up leaving fingerprints on them is you have the glove and it's thin enough to actually let the ridges, and grooves of your finger indent the glove, and so you get grease, whatever, like either like from touching your face or from like handling oils or other stuff, and then you touch a surface that is receptive to fingerprints, like say this glass here. If you handle this in gloves with thin gloves that have some sort of stuff on it, you can actually leave fingerprints on those surfaces. Guys, don't use this information for crime. I'm just telling you for like why. Don't touch the face with the gloves when you're handling the evidence. You idiot. Oh my God, you idiot. Don't do it. But nope, that's Canton PD, folks.
Sort of your case, your case number with Ken, please.
So it is there's a case number assigned to us, 22-87OF, and there is a property number, 22-18PR, and it's listed as broken drinking glass.
Have
And
you seen the item contained within that bag earlier this morning as well?
yes,
And what you observed within that bag,
Touches glass is not
exactly
much of a
the
big deal,
piece of
but
the cocktail
still.
glass that you observed on the front yard area of 34 Fairview Road on January 29th, 2022.
yes, it is.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would ask that the witness be allowed to take it out of the bag and display it to the jury.
Okay. So, that's not like a martini glass. That's like a rocks or a highball glass. So, now you see that it's broken. I have some questions. I got some questions about this glass. So let's talk about the glass, because the glass is broken, right? It's pretty damaged. So where did it get damaged? Where did this glass get broken? I haven't heard anything about the highball glass being broken on the scene. And so if the guy gets hit by a car and that's the cause of the broken glass, where'd they find the rest of the glass? Did they find it out where, did they find it near the supposed bits of taillight? Because if not, that's a mystery, right? That's a weird thing. Are they trying to say that he was holding the glass? I'm going to use are they trying to say, I'm going to embiggen myself just so I can gesture at you guys? Are they trying to say he was holding the glass when he got smucked by a car? Because if so, is his hand messed up? Glass slashes you pretty badly. Are they saying there was glass in the car? Are they saying like, I want to know the details on this one, and hopefully they'll draw that connection soon, because the prosecution has not been good about telling stories. And right now they should be telling us the story of the broken glass, right? Where's this going? If they're trying to say that the arm injuries were from the glass, I have one word, which is kind of two words put together for that, and that'd be bullshit. So they say they found a piece of glass on Karen's bumper. Where'd they find the rest of it? Yeah, I got questions. Let's see about some answers. And the other thing is, if I find a piece of glass like this, I want to track it down. We know that this guy was at a bar, right? Is this the same kind of glasses that were used at the bar? Like, is this a glass from the bar? Because glasses aren't like drinking with your college buddies, right? Everybody's been to that college party where they've got like 1,000 glasses and they're all from like the thrift store and none of them match, but all of them are kind of funky. We've all seen that, right? Like, we've all been at that party where it's like, yeah, there's glasses, but they're all different. Bars aren't like that. Bars they'll have one consistent kind of glass for each thing, because otherwise it's a giant pain in the tuchus. So they know which bar he was at. Is this a glass from that bar? Is this a glass from somewhere else? Maybe did they go to this guy's house and say, hey, what kind of glasses do you have? And somebody says the glasses in 34 Fairview were rehomed to another state. Yeah. Yeah. Now, I was just waiting for this guy to, I was waiting for him to accidentally cut himself handling this glass because they sharp.
Thank you, sir. We can place it back in the back.
And people are noting that you are not allowed to take glasses out of the bar. I'm just going to say bars lose glasses. People steal stuff from bars. Drunk people do dumb stuff. So, yeah.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
That's the other thing. Bars tend to pick glasses that they can get for 25 cents a piece, so that when somebody drops one, it's like, all right, we get another one out of the back. It's like, yeah.
Colonel Commonwealth, seek to introduce in a minute the next exhibit.
Yes.
And I'm stealing a joke from the chat. When this was in evidence, this broken glass was the sharpest thing in that entire police department.
The 45.
Now, Lieutenant Lank, once you were back at the police station, what, if any, call did you receive from anyone in regard to who, if anyone, called you once you were back at the station?
Jennifer McCabe called at 9 a.m.
And where did you go following that phone call with Jennifer McCabe?
Lieutenant Gallagher and I went back to 34 Fairview Road.
So this is now the third time that you've gone back and gone inside the residence.
Okay, I'm just going to say another reason why I'm not going to go to Canton anytime soon. One, the whole police thing is a reason to stay the hell out of Canton. Especially because if any of them have watched this video, I expect that they would charge me with every unsolved murder all at once if I walk into that town. But the other thing is I've got this at 1 1/4 speed, and I keep checking. You'll see me check the speed because 1 1/4 speed still sounds slow. And I'm like, oh, I guess that's just the Canton accent. Okay, cool. Rock on, I guess.
Before Fairview Road, is that correct?
That's correct.
And who, if anyone, did you speak with, along with yourself and Lieutenant Gallagher, once you returned there that morning?
Jennifer McCabe.
But how long a period of conversation was that second conversation that you had with Mr. Smith?
Between 5 and 10 minutes.
And then following that, where did you go from there?
Returned to the police station.
Now, if I could turn your attention to February 4th of 2022. Were you working on that day?
I was.
And in the same capacity that you had described earlier?
Yes.
And at some point, approximately 8:50 a.m. or so, who, if anyone, called you on that day?
Lieutenant Gallagher.
Linda, there might be lots of
what, if
reasons for
anything,
that.
Where did he direct you to go during the course of that conversation?
Lieutenant Gallagher directed me to go back to 34 Fairview Road and meet with Chief Berkowitz as he had possibly discovered more evidence.
And in the time between January 29th and February 4th, had you gone back to 34 Fairview Road at any point?
No.
Now, between that time of January 29th, 2022 and February 4th, 2022, what, if anything, occurred in regard to the weather in between those days?
So the weather had, the temperatures had increased and there was some rain.
And increased, if you know, approximately how much?
I believe it made it up to the mid 40s.
So well above freezing, is that correct?
Correct.
And with regard to the snowfall that had come from the 28th and the 29th, what, if anything, just in general, had you, not in general, specifically to 34 Fairview Road, What, if anything, did you observe between the snow that you observed there on the 29th and the snow that you observed there on February 4th?
A lot of the snow had melted and a lot of the ground had been revealed.
And when you arrived at 34 Fairview Road on February 4th, what, if anything, did you observe and where did you observe?
Chief Berkowitz brought my attention to a piece of red glass that was about 6 to 8 feet off the into the yard.
Now, before we get to that, as far as when you responded, who, if anyone else from your department, responded along with you?
Detective Tim Taylor.
And the pieces of plastic that you observed, where were they in relation to where you had observed or where you had been directed to that Mr. O'Keefe had been found on January 29th?
The glass was in the vicinity of where Mr. O'Keefe had been discovered.
So everybody was there, like snow blowing and leaf blowing and whatever else. And then afterwards, after everyone has filed out, now they start finding all of this evidence. That seems weird to me.
Now, with respect to that pieces of plastic that you observed, what, if anything, did you do to memorialize where they were?
I photographed the piece of plastic as it sat.
And did you or anyone in your presence touch, manipulate, or move those pieces of plastic in any way?
No.
And at some point after you arrived on scene, who, if anyone, did you contact in regard to securing those items?
I contacted the CPAC unit, and ultimately Trooper Buchanan arrived back at the scene.
And if you know about how much time elapsed between the time that you contacted CPAC and the time that
I honestly don't recall.
And when Trooper Buchanan arrived on scene, what, if anything, did you observe him to do with those pieces of plastic that you directed his attention to?
Trooper Buchanan secured the item into a evidence bag.
May I approach you?
Yes.
So I'm showing you two photographs. Ask you just briefly to look them over and look up when you're finished. Do you recognize those, sir?
I do.
What do you recognize in those photographs?
I recognize this to be the piece of plastic that Chief Berkowitz had observed on that morning.
And those are the photographs that you took that morning as well, is that correct?
That's correct.
What's contained in those?
So this is weird, right? They're saying we found all of these bits of the broken plastic on the scene. And the thing is like, this would be good evidence that that was where it was broken. The problem is like, you didn't do it on the day of. This is why you secure a scene and search the scene and so forth, because instead what they did is they did a search where they didn't find the broken, and they say glass. Those things are going to be like polycarbonate. They're not going to be glass, because glass is a stupid material for most things on a car. And it's not like your typical plastic. It's like a, so it's not glass, it's a plastic. But yeah, it's, I also just kind of want to do an experiment. Yeah, no, it wasn't the same day that they found it. It was the same day they search and they find nothing. Later, they search and they find all this stuff. The same day they find any of this. All of those officers say, I didn't find any of this on the same day. What you want to do is you want to go and you want to, you want to cordon things off so nothing came out. Nothing, yeah.
Photographs. Is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed on February 4th, 2022?
Yes, it is.
And the Commonwealth seek to introduce and admit as the next two exhibits.
Okay.
I just want to comment on something else. This is something nobody else will notice. This court clerk, the clerk of the court there, is an absolute badass. This court clerk is, you see how efficiently she's running through like exhibit marking and all of that. This is a court clerk who has experience. This is a court clerk who is not new to what she's doing. And respect your clerks, yo, because clerks do good work. Clerks do hard work. She is nobody, or a court reporter, different terms where I am, but she is, she's doing good work. She's keeping things along. So yeah, no, I give her props. I just want to give her some props on all of that. Cause yeah.
It's 46 and 47.
So she's getting everything marked up.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have first of those photographs up on the screen.
It's the court reporter doing it? Okay. Whatever her like official title is, she's kicking butt at her job.
Yes.
That's
And, this is sort of a further out image of that piece of plastic you were talking about. Is that correct?
Yes.
Using the laser pointer before you, if you could just draw the jury's attention to where in the photograph you observe that. Thanks. Ms. Gilman, the next photograph.
that seems pretty obvious. Like, okay.
Could just draw the jury's attention to where in the photograph you observe that. Thanks. Ms. Gilman, the next photograph.
It's not even buried in the snow. It's just kind of sitting there on top of it. Like, okay. I don't even see moisture on it. I don't even see, I don't even see that this thing is like damp. Interesting. And is this a footprint? How is this piece of glass making it to a footprint?
And sir, do you again recognize what's up on the screen?
Yes, it's a close-up picture of the piece of plastic.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can. If I may have.
Yes.
That just looks weird. I mean, I don't know if they're going to point it out, but
Mr. Jackson?
Thank you, Your Honor. May we approach briefly?
Sure.
yep, everyone's approaching. Yay.
All right, jurors, so you're about to hear evidence of an event that happened in 2002. This evidence can be considered by you insofar as it demonstrates or relates to the credibility of this witness and the thoroughness of the investigation into this case for which the defendant is currently on trial before you folks. You may use this evidence to the extent that you find it credible in deciding whether there was any bias or favoritism on the part of the police in their investigation in this case.
May I?
Mr. Jackson, yes.
Lieutenant Lank, I want to start by asking you about your relationship with certain members of the Albert family. Do you know any other members of the Albert family other than Brian Albert?
Yes.
Can you describe who those are?
Kevin Albert, who is a detective on our department, Chris Albert, and I know Tim Albert.
Are those three individuals brothers?
Yes.
Who's the eldest brother?
Brian.
How long have you known, I want to start first with Tim Albert. How long have you known Tim Albert?
I knew Tim Albert when he was a kid because he was friends with a younger brother of a friend of mine.
Starting at what age?
12.
So you've
He was 12. I was probably 16 or so.
Okay, so the better part of your life, you've known Tim Albert.
Since about 16, I would say.
And what about Chris Albert?
Chris Albert, I've known since junior high.
Which would be about what age?
13, 14.
You grew up
12,
with Chris?
12, 13. I was friendly with Chris from junior high through high school and into our 20s.
And friendly with Tim?
I wouldn't say I was friendly to say hello to Tim. I didn't associate with him. He was younger. He was Chris's younger brother.
But you also knew Chris's older brother, Brian?
Yes.
Back in those days.
I knew who he was.
So you've known the three of them for basically your entire life?
No, I had met them. I had met Brian. I didn't know him other than just being Chris's older brother when we were younger kids.
Certainly with regard to Chris, you would consider him a close friend.
Consider who a close friend?
Chris.
Yes.
I'm using first names only because they're all
Sure, sure. Chris and I were pretty good friends when we were younger, yes.
I want to draw your attention to an incident in August of 2002. Do you remember an incident in 2002 occurring with that involved Chris Albert?
Yes.
So does he remember? Of course he remembers. He was literally just asked yesterday. Apple Silver says, Ian, isn't that the same shirt as yesterday? I take it you haven't slept at all. It is my other red shirt. I have more than one red shirt. I actually thought about that. I was like, do I want to wear my other red shirt? Will people think that I haven't changed? Screw it. Nobody's going to comment on it. There it is. There's the comment. So yes, I have more than one red shirt. I like this kind of shirt.
In 2002, in August of 2002 specifically, you were off duty, correct?
Yes.
Now, every time somebody says that they're like acquaintances with somebody now, we're not that close a friend. I keep expecting to hear that they like donated a kidney to each other or something. It's like, I feel like there's a lot of acquaintances with benefits. It's like, how would you describe your relationship with so-and-so? We're acquaintances. It's like, and you've been married for 13 years? Yes. Like, nobody knows anybody in this town, but everybody knows everybody in this town. It's weird.
You had been drinking alcohol, correct?
Yes.
You were approached by Chris Albert out in the parking lot. Is that right?
That's correct.
And Chris Albert told you some information about being in a fight. That he had been in a fight or an altercation of some sort, correct?
He told me he had been in an altercation earlier in the night and some threats had been made to him and his family.
And you got out of your car and discussed this with Mr. Albert, correct?
No.
You just talked to him while you were seated in your car?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, did some other individuals approach that same area?
Yes.
Was there a fight that you believed was about to ensue?
Yes.
Did you get out of your car at that point?
I did.
Did you come to Chris's aid by, quote unquote, activating yourself as an officer?
I got out of my car and I approached the group and I pleaded with them to not fight tonight. I said, there's not going to be a fight tonight. There's 6 of you guys. He's here with his girlfriend. There's not going to be a fight tonight.
So he agreed with him having activated himself as an officer at the, in the voir dire. Now he's like, whoa. I just talked to some dudes. When you see the problem is where you see the evidence changing from one thing to another. So, yeah.
Did you come to Chris Albert's aid as best you could as a longtime friend of his?
I came to the aid of a citizen who was in fear and of need.
That citizen happened to be Chris Albert, whom you had known since you were 12 years old.
Correct.
He's dodging the questions now because
Ultimately,
he's been on the voir
break
dire.
out, did it not?
Yes.
And you engaged in that fight.
Yes.
And again, you had been drinking alcohol at that point, correct?
Correct.
And you were.
And did you go full vampire mode and bite a dude? Like,
Off duty in August of 2002 during this fight.
Yes.
Just like you were off duty in 2022 when you were called by Sergeant Good to activate and come to the crime scene at 34 Fairview.
When Sergeant Good contacted me, I was not working. I was due to work at 7:45 that morning. When Sergeant Good contacted me and told me what was going on, then I activated myself and came to work because I was the detective sergeant.
Go Power Rangers. I was thinking more like, Born Identity or something, but yeah. Or, the Manchurian Candidate. But I think that when they activate themselves, they just put on the cop mirrored sunglasses.
That's similar sort of activation, using that word in air quotes, it's similar sort of activation that you employed back in 2002 to assist Chris Albert.
No.
You did, in fact, call for someone to call the police and get some Canton officers over there, correct?
Excuse me. So in 2002?
In 2002.
Yes.
Okay. And I failed to ask you this, but in 2002, you were, in fact, a Canton police officer.
Yes.
At the time. After the other officers arrived, did you order the other officers to handcuff or somehow restrain one of the two brothers that were involved in this fight with Chris?
No.
Ultimately, did you see whether or not those officers handcuffed or otherwise restrained one of the brothers that was involved in this fight?
Yes.
And did you then engage physically in a fight with the other brother who was not restrained?
No. The struggle had already occurred.
All right. So let me make sure I get
How many people
right.
did you bite,
You did, in
sir?
fact, engage in a physical fight with one of the brothers, correct?
Upon being struck, yes.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Upon being struck, yes.
And then you struck him back.
Yes.
You ended up on the ground.
Yes, we were wrestling, yes.
And ultimately, the other officers had to pull you off that man, correct?
And you went full bath salts, hobo, and ate his face. Tell us about the biting.
No.
You ultimately, the fight was broken up between you and the other brother. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. And that fight was broken up by the officers who were on scene.
Yes.
Tell us about the
physical
biting.
altercation with the brother who was not ultimately restrained. Both of the brothers and everybody else was just told by the officers, just go away. Get out of here, go home, correct?
No, I believe one of the brothers left the scene, fled the scene, and the brother that was restrained was ultimately uncuffed and left free to go.
And nobody was arrested that night.
Correct.
Nobody chased down the brother that left the scene, correct?
That's correct.
And nobody arrested the brother that had been handcuffed.
Correct.
And no police reports were written by you or any.
Wait, you handcuffed him, but you didn't arrest him and you didn't write a police report? So, that doesn't sound like policing. That sounds like y'all needed to work out a safe word first.
The other officers about this incident on that night.
I don't recall when the other officers wrote theirs. I did not write mine on that night.
The next day, you became aware that one or both of the brothers had arrived at Canton Police Department to file a formal complaint for having been physically attacked by you and some of the other officers involved, correct?
I don't recall when I was made aware that they had come down to the police station.
You are aware that there was a complaint sought against you for the physical attack that was alleged to have occurred, correct?
It was brought to my attention that they had come down to the police station.
And you also are aware that only after that complaint had been sought, the police reports were then dated and filed against the two brothers, correct?
So I had spoken to the sergeant on duty the night of the incident.
No question. I'm just looking at time.
It's not a yes or no question.
So he was just asking about dates. So can you answer?
He said, what date did, was it this date that the thing happened? He's like, that's not a yes or no question. It's like, it freaking is, though.
The question. Ask the question
Could you
about the
repeat?
dates again, please.
I'm seeking the
300,000. Jeez.
The fight occurs, a complaint against you occurs, and then police reports are filed against the two people that are complaining against you. Is that the chronology?
Yes.
And you're also aware that although he had been in a physical fight that night, no charges were ever brought against Chris Albert, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Do you know that?
I don't know. I don't even know where the fight occurred.
Officer Lang, what we just talked about, is that an example of you using your position as a police officer to come to the aid of one of the members of the Albert family?
It was me coming to the aid of a citizen who was terrified and scared for him and his family on that night.
That was a bit of a "have you stopped beating your wife" question. So fair. He navigated his way out of it.
Who happened?
What?
Excuse me. Who happened to be Chris Albert?
I would have objected to that question.
You mentioned Kevin Albert. Who's he?
Kevin Albert is a detective with the Canton Police.
Is he a coworker?
Yes.
How long have you known him?
Probably since 14, 15 years old.
Now he's making all the mouth noises. He wasn't before, but now he's making all that. And it's like, ugh, stop it.
And you also consider him to be a friend as well as a coworker.
I do.
And a colleague.
Yes.
And you're also well aware. I mean, you've said it already. He's the little brother of Brian Albert.
Correct.
And you're also aware that the reason that your department was ultimately recused from this investigation, Lieutenant Lank, is because of a perceived bias or conflict of interest between the Albert family and the Canton Police Department. Correct?
Yes, there was a perceived bias.
Can you tell me one more time? And now I want to fast forward to
the other officer managed to dodge that a lot better. This guy is just like, yes, there was a perceived bias. It's like, ooh, that's a good answer.
In question. What was the exact time that you arrived at the location, if you know?
I believe it was around 6:24, 6:25.
Okay. And you indicated that that was in response to a call that you got from Sergeant Good.
Yes, that's correct.
I heard him swallow that.
What made you decide, or could you have decided to take this particular call? Was it up to you, in other words?
I would never not take that call.
Okay, fair enough. So once you got the call, you knew that you were going to respond because there was something very serious afoot.
Correct.
Did you know at the time you got the call that very serious incident was occurring at 34 Fairview?
No.
When did you realize that?
Probably when they told him where to go.
With Sergeant Good.
Okay, so Sergeant Good didn't, I guess that's what maybe I asked an inartful question.
How did you know where to go if nobody told you what the address was?
I was asking whether or not Sergeant Good told you before you actually arrived, he sort of had to have, that it's at 34 Fairview.
He did.
Okay. At that point, did a light bulb go off and you think to yourself, ding, that's the Albert House?
I don't recall if I realized it then or once I turned onto the street. I don't recall.
At some point before your car came to a stop, you knew this is 34 Fairview, this is the Albert household.
I knew that was Brian Albert's house, yes.
So this guy admits he knew what house it was, and he's the guy finding all the broken polycarbonate there.
When you arrived, who was the ranking officer at the scene? You mentioned, obviously we've heard these names, Sergeant Good, Officer Mullaney, Officer Seraph, you. Who was the ranking officer?
When I arrived, Sergeant Good was the ranking officer.
But you were all the wanking officers.
Have you reviewed either, well, let me ask a different question. Did you have a dash cam in the vehicle that you arrived in?
I did not.
And that's because was that a detective vehicle?
Yes.
Sometimes used undercover, et cetera?
Yes.
So it's not a fully marked cruiser.
No, not at all.
The other cruisers you're aware did have dash cams, correct?
Yes.
Have you reviewed any or all of those dash cams from Officer Mullaney, Officer Seraph, Sergeant Good?
Yes.
And you reviewed those in preparation for your testimony?
Yes.
I'd like to show you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 16. And I'm going to ask Mr. Bates if you could fast forward that to about the runtime of about, 28:35 or so, with the court's permission.
Yes.
Before we play this, it appears to be a still image of.
So let's not describe it.
Sure. What do you see on the screen?
I see two still images.
You're not testifying.
Okay. Do you recognize either or both of those images?
Yes.
How do you recognize them?
It looks like the scene from that morning. I believe it's going to be.
We're up to 1.5.
683 Officer Seraph's cruiser.
And the bottom one?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Looks like possibly Sergeant Goods based on where it's placed.
Okay.
And also the fact that it says Officer Good dash cam, that might be a small hint. But I mean, we are talking about a detective with Canton PD, so they're not big on the clues.
If we could fast forward to the 28:40 mark or so, Mr. Bates, and play that. And let's pause it for a second. You want to maybe approach briefly?
Okay.
I didn't sterilize the solo cups. I did wash them.
Correct? Yeah. You indicated that you have reviewed these videos in anticipation of your testimony today, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to the top video, and specifically to an area right around this area in the video, which is highlighted. Before we play, a couple of foundational questions. Did you meet with Jennifer McCabe out behind the vehicle that's depicted in the Officer Seraph dash cam?
Yes,
Did you have some sort of a conversation with her?
I did.
At some point, did you see Ms. McCabe leave your presence and walk toward the driveway?
Once the conversation had terminated, I honestly don't recall where she went.
Did she tell you that she intended to go inside the house?
I had said to her that at some point we're going to need to speak to Brian and Nicole
Why did you think it was important to speak to Brian and Nicole?
because it's their property.
And somebody was laying in the snow, unconscious and unresponsive, correct?
Correct.
And obviously that could potentially, at least, implicate people inside the house.
Based on my conversation with Ms. McCabe, she had stated that the intention was for Mr. McCabe, for Mr. O'Keefe to join them at that house. So I wanted to get statements from everybody who was there.
Find out what happened, correct?
Correct.
I mean, that's sort of the obvious initial point of an investigation. Find out who the witnesses are and interview all of them, correct?
Correct.
And you began by talking to Ms. McCabe.
Yes.
Knowing that she was a potential witness at least, correct?
She identified herself as a friend of Mr. O'Keefe.
Who had been with Mr. O'Keefe just hours before.
Yes.
He ended up laying in the snow fighting for his life, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you also knew that there were other witnesses potentially inside the house because she just told you that, right?
I knew that that was ultimately where he was supposed to end up.
So if there were other witnesses in the house, if there were other individuals in the house, they also were potential witnesses.
Potentially.
And Ms. McCabe indicated, I'm going to go in the house, correct?
I had told her that she's going to have to wake her sister up because we're going to need to speak with them.
You didn't think that it was more important to separate the witnesses and not let her talk to other witnesses?
No.
Listen, that sounds like police work, and we don't do that here. That's not how we roll. That's not what we do.
You thought that it was appropriate to let all the witnesses get together and just discuss the facts before you have an opportunity to interview them separately?
Objection.
It goes to the form.
I'm just letting her. Sorry, go on.
That's fine.
Lieutenant Lake, if you could direct your attention to the area that I highlighted earlier. Let's go ahead and play the video. Stop.
Solid joke, Court TV. Solid.
Did you see anything occur at or around the car in the distance?
It appears to be somebody walking towards the house.
Was that Jen McCabe?
I can't say for sure.
Do you see yourself, by the way, in this video?
Yes.
Where are you?
Right here.
Okay. You described, I don't know if it's tan or gray.
It's a gray North Face jacket with it's black on the top.
Okay. Toward the shoulders?
Yes.
All right. Let's go ahead and play the video, and I'll indicate another stopping place that I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about.
I still can't get over how they described that this is like a blizzard. Like, come on, seriously?
It's getting frozen. Did you see another person shorter in stature approach you?
I believe right there. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Who is that?
I believe it's Kerry Roberts.
Okay. Let's go play it. How's it?
I like how they just like get in. Isn't she real short?
Did you see yourself just exit screen right?
Yes.
You had something in your hand?
Yes.
You're taking a call?
Yes.
On your cell phone?
Yes.
What was that call?
I don't recall. It could have. I can't see what time that is.
We have been trying to reach you about your car's insurance. We've been trying to reach you about your vehicle insurance.
I don't believe that I made the call to the CPAC unit until around 6:38, so I'm not sure who that call was from.
If you'll direct your attention, I think now down toward the camera below.
Yes.
You may see yourself into the frame. Can we go ahead and play it?
About your car's extended warranty. Gotcha. I haven't gotten one of those calls. I get the duct cleaning
Is it on the
calls.
phone?
Yes.
Okay. How's it? Did it appear that you walked off screen left?
Yes.
Still on the phone?
Yes.
Now, I'm just going to talk about one thing. All of the, like, lots of people assume that, like, police body cams and police dash cams and all of these recordings are, that means that, like, everyone's going to get convicted all of a sudden. That, like, there's no place for defense lawyers because now there's all this video. And, if it wasn't for the video, I actually think that she'd be in a lot more trouble. The video is helping the defense, and you'd be surprised at how often this happens.
Did you see somebody following that same direction?
It looked like Officer Sarif. Actually, I'm wrong because that's Officer Sarif right there, so I'm incorrect.
You think it might have been Sergeant Good?
Could we play it back?
With the court's permission.
Sure, go ahead.
It's Officer Sasquatch talking to Officer Nessie.
Yes, I'm mistaken. That's Sergeant Good.
Okay, go ahead. Does it appear that you've walked back into the frame?
Yes,
Are you followed by anybody?
I believe it's still Sergeant Good.
Are you speaking to Sergeant Good or are you walking away from him? Or can't you tell?
In that frame, it appears I'm standing right next to him.
Okay, let's go ahead and play it. Pause it. It appeared you were sort of walking away from Sergeant Good off frame again.
Yes, it appears that I'm pacing.
Were you still on the phone?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
This is an interesting comment. I like this one. It's concerning that the German Shepherd wasn't barking, especially once the cop is in the house. Mine barks at all people known or unknown, though the tone changes to indicate known versus unknown. I can say if there was all this crap going on in my front yard, Potter and Zora would be letting me know. They would be letting me know. They would have opinions.
Directing your attention to the top video, do you see the SUV in the video?
Yes.
Does that SUV appear to be leaving the scene?
Yes.
If somebody walks their dog past my house, Zora's got opinions.
I believe it's going to be Kerry Roberts and Karen Reed.
Okay, go ahead. Pause it. At that point, are you walking back into the frame on the lower video?
Yes.
At this point, Lieutenant, are the lights at 34 Fairview on or off?
They still appear to be off.
And at some point while you were at the scene, did the lights come on? I think you testified to that earlier.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like you to pay special attention to that moment and maybe tell me to stop when you see those lights come on.
Insomnia kicking my butt.
At this point, does it appear that you're still on the phone?
Yes.
I can't believe we're at 1.5. Like,
How's it? At this point, is there anything that changed in the scene?
Yes.
What's that?
It appears that there's now a light on inside the home.
And at this point, Ms. McCabe has been inside the house for approximately how long, if you could estimate?
Maybe 3 minutes.
And are you still on the phone? Or have you ended that call?
I can't tell if I'm still on the phone at that point. I know With it right around this time is when I end up speaking to the CPAC unit, because I believe I get into the vehicle.
Let's play it just a little bit further forward, maybe another 30 seconds or so. Okay. Does it appear at this point, if you can see, does it appear that you've ended that call, or at least your hands are down by your side?
I can't tell.
Okay. You would agree with me, that's all for that. Okay. You would agree with me that that was without counting the seconds, that was about a 5-minute phone call, better than 5 minutes.
I wasn't watching, to be honest.
Do you have any idea who you were talking to now that you've seen that?
I could make an educated guess, but I don't know for sure.
You did notice that several minutes after Jim McCabe went in the house, and while you were on that phone call, the lights finally came on at 34 Fairview, correct?
Correct.
At the point the lights came on, the ladder truck had already gone, left from the scene, correct?
I believe so.
The firefighters are all gone.
So you have a 5-minute call. It's not actually about your car's warranty or extended warranty, unless you're the dumbest MF on the planet, which might be possible. But why are you having a 5-minute phone call? If
Yes.
The ambulance has already left and transported Mr. O'Keefe.
Yes.
The paramedics are gone, the EMTs.
Yes.
Fire captain and his SUV, that's gone. Is that right?
I'm sorry, was there a question?
The fire captain and his SUV, that's gone.
I'm not sure.
In other words, all the fire and EMTs.
I don't see them on camera.
Doesn't appear that any fire or EMTs are still on scene, correct?
Doesn't appear so.
Carrie Roberts is gone.
Yes.
Karen Reed is gone.
Yes.
So when the only parties left at the scene are members of the Albert family, Jen McCabe, and the Canton Police Department representatives, that's when the lights inside 34 Fairview finally came on.
Okay.
Is that yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Minutes after that call, you did then speak to CPAC. I'm sorry, to dispatch, correct?
CPAC dispatch.
Right, I was getting to that. It was dispatch, and the dispatch was to CPAC, not to Canton PD.
Correct.
And at some point, did CPAC dispatch indicate that they were on their way, they had declined the call? What was that call all about?
So there are two separate calls.
Your Honor.
Sustained.
Who did you talk to at CPAC?
I don't recall who handled the first call at dispatch.
Okay, do you remember having a conversation with Kelly Dever?
No.
Okay.
I think we're talking about two different things. I'm talking about CPAC dispatch, not Canton Police dispatch.
Okay, fair enough. At some point, did you have a conversation with, well, let me ask it this way. I just don't know. Did you talk to both Canton dispatch and CPAC dispatch?
I definitely spoke to CPAC dispatch.
And, okay.
I'm not sure if I spoke to Canton dispatch or not.
All right. At some point, did you say, did you indicate to one or the other, I'm responding to 34 Fairview, we have a Boston police officer who was just found?
I stated that I was already at 34 Fairview.
You indicated that he does have some trauma to his head area, correct?
That's correct.
You said, quote, I'm not sure if he's been in a fight or whatever. Our medics don't believe he's going to make it.
Correct.
End quote. Sergeant Lang, you never saw John O'Keefe's body, correct?
Correct.
So somebody disclosed to you that it appeared that he had been in a, quote, fight or whatever, at least at that point. That was your thought?
No.
And what made you say, well, you didn't say to dispatch, the victim appears to have been shot, correct?
Correct.
You didn't say it appeared he'd been stabbed?
No.
He had been strangled?
No.
You didn't say it appeared he'd been hit by a car?
Correct.
You said it appeared that he'd been in a fight or whatever, correct?
I stated that he had some trauma to his head, and I said, I don't know if he has been in a fight. And then I believe I described it as a, I don't remember my exact terminology, but it was a crazy scene.
Chaotic scene?
Possibly. I don't recall my exact words, something to that effect.
But you do recall your exact words to dispatch being, I don't know if he's been in a fight or whatever.
Correct.
Okay. I want to talk about inside the house for just a few minutes, if I could. You've talked extensively about the crime scene outside. We'll get to that in a second, but I want to talk about what did or did not happen inside the house. Did you actually make it inside the house at some point?
Yes.
Okay. When was that? How long? Let's use Jennifer McCabe as the time frame. How long after that did you finally go inside the house, after she'd been in the house?
So it was specifically just after I got off the phone with CPAC.
So just a few minutes after we ended that video?
Yes.
And you walked you said either along the driveway or through the yard?
I believe it was up the driveway.
Okay. Once you went in the house, you made contact with the individuals in the house, correct?
Yes.
And you believed, at least at that point, that there was a potential, that there was a, let me rephrase that. You knew that you were dealing with a violent incident, correct?
No.
You thought maybe it was just a heart attack?
I didn't know what it was. At that point in time, I didn't know what it was. Could have been a multitude of things.
But what was going through your mind at that point was it could have been a fight or whatever, because he had trauma to his head. Those were your words.
Those were my words, yes.
Okay. So you didn't think it was like Some old man who died of old age, right?
Based on his age, no, I wouldn't have suspected that.
You think it was an accidental drowning or something?
The thing is based upon his age is a tough one because let's talk about that. I mean, Rick Hogue is not an old man. He had a stroke. You never know. You never know what's you know, you can't make that assumption. You didn't think it was an accidental drowning is an excellent question, though.
Again, it could have been a multitude of things to cause those injuries. So at that point in time, we had no idea what we were looking at.
But you were aware that it had something to do with a violent incident. He had trauma to his face and he's unconscious, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Did you believe that there were any indicators that Mr. O'Keefe had been involved in some sort of a physical altercation?
Possibly.
Okay. And that's because you used the phrase, he had trauma to his face and head, right?
That's what I had been told, yes.
So based on what you had been told, you knew that there was a person laying out unconscious just outside a residence that may have been involved in a physical altercation. That's fair.
It's a possibility, yes. Again, there were a multitude of things that were going through my head as possibilities.
But that's one of the premier possibilities, right?
I wouldn't say it's premier. It was one of the possibilities.
And it's logical to believe that if a fight had occurred, very well may have started inside the residence 30 feet away.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Did you believe in your mind that it was possible, given the fact that a violent confrontation was possible in your mind, that it could have started inside the house?
Objection.
Sustained.
Your approach.
Yes.
I think that was actually a reasonable question. Like, there's a whole bunch of people who are theorizing some sort of cough code here. I'm not seeing it, but I'm not paying that much attention to it.
Lieutenant Lang, given what you believed at the time and the possibility that there was a fight or whatever, did you logically think in your mind, your state of mind was it possibly could have started in the house?
If it had been of confrontation, it could have started anywhere.
Right? The house is part of anywhere, right?
Correct.
So in other words, the house is not excluded in your mind at that point.
The house is part of anywhere, right? Fair. This is a good question, and the answer is correct. They cannot film the sidebars. They will not have been allowed to film the sidebars and listen to the sidebars. That, yeah.
As a starting point for the investigation, is that right?
Well, the starting point would have been where Mr. O'Keefe had been discovered, and then based on speaking with the witnesses, there was no indication that he had ever made it into the house.
Well, you didn't know that until you followed up on your investigation, correct?
Well, I learned that by speaking to Ms. McCabe.
So you just took Ms. McCabe's word.
How would you find out if they made it into the house if you don't ask the people in the house? And if Ms. McCabe says he never made it into the house, and the other people in the house say he did make it to the house, then that's super relevant that somebody's full of crap, right? Obviously, you want to ask that.
For it.
At that point in time, that was the only person I had spoken to, and she gave me a timeline of events from that night
After
where
the case
Mr.
is done,
O'Keefe was
you'd have
supposed to
to
come back to
order
the
it,
house,
and it would be
but never made it.
expensive.
Have you ever been in your course of investigating cases? Have you ever been lied to by a witness?
Objection, Your Honor.
Can you answer that? Have you ever been lied to by a witness?
Yes.
So it's not necessarily the best investigative technique to just.
I don't feel like Fargo is a fair comparison here because the main character in Fargo, that policewoman, was very competent. I feel like this comparison is extremely unfair to that character in Fargo. So, yeah.
Just take a witness's word for something, correct?
Objection.
That's sustained.
You need to actually investigate the circumstances for yourself and to your own satisfaction. Is that a fair statement?
Sure.
One of those investigative techniques would be to walk into the house and figure out who's who there, correct?
Can you rephrase the question?
Sure. One of those investigative techniques to satisfy yourself that you're actually getting to the truth of the matter would be to walk into the house and figure out who's in the house first.
I will agree that I needed to speak to the people in the home. I can't just walk in their house. I have to announce myself, and they don't have to let me in.
I understand. I'm not trying to parse those words. I just mean entering the home and interviewing witnesses. That would be a normal part of your investigation initially, correct?
Yes.
And you also knew that the most obvious place to look for witnesses that may have information about a fallen man in the snow would be 30 feet away in the home, correct?
Correct.
So once you're inside the residence, you walk in the front door, correct?
Yes.
You indicated that there's a stair that services the second floor. Is that right?
Straight ahead, yes.
Right. Just before the staircase, there's a door to your left, right?
You know this house.
I don't recall.
You remember there's a door that when you open it, goes directly downstairs to the basement?
I don't recall.
You indicated on direct examination that
You don't
didn't notice
recall.
anything-
Okay,
I'm
sure.
paraphrasing, so forgive me. You didn't notice anything out of place in the home.
No.
But you didn't go downstairs to the basement and look, did you?
No.
Didn't look for broken furniture down there?
I didn't enter the.
Police and vampires have a lot in common. They need permission to enter a house or a warrant. Also, they put their blood in Solo cups.
Basement at all.
You didn't look for torn
You know,
clothing
they
down
treat
there?
blood like a
Objection, no.
beverage.
Sustained.
How about anywhere in the house? Did you look for broken furniture or torn clothing or blood evidence or DNA evidence?
At that point in time, I never made it past the front foyer area.
So the answer to my question is no, you did not.
I never made it past the front foyer area.
So if I were
So
to
you
ask
didn't
you one
ask
more
to
time,
look around?
I know you never made it past the foyer. Did you ever investigate the foyer area or any other part of the house for evidence of a fight?
The only area I was able to observe at that point, everything appeared to be in order.
But you didn't search the rest of the house for a fight, Lieutenant. That's all I'm asking.
No, I wouldn't have had probable cause to do so.
And did you seek guidance from a court as to whether or not you might have probable cause?
You mean a search warrant?
That's what I mean.
I wouldn't fill out an affidavit for a search warrant because it wouldn't have probable cause.
In your mind, there was no PC to search that house, right?
Objection.
Let's move on from this.
One of the ways
Basically, that
to
was
secure
a sort of
premises,
asked
any
and
premises,
answered.
a normal crime scene investigation would be to remove the witnesses and animals from that premises to sort of freeze it and lock it down, correct?
If there was reason to do so, yes.
Okay. Were the witnesses in this case asked to come outside the house in order to freeze the house down as a potential crime scene?
No,
Were any animals removed in order to freeze and lock down the house as a potential crime scene?
I didn't observe any animal.
Say a Chloe.
Did you, and this is the last question on this issue, did you do anything to lock down and secure that premises, the inside of the house, in any way, shape, form, or fashion?
Can you rephrase that, please?
Sure. Did you do anything to lock down and secure that premises in any way, shape, form, or fashion?
No.
Did you allow witnesses to go inside the house other than Jim McCabe?
Yes.
Who's that?
I believe Matt McCabe entered the house after I had come out.
And did you
And like everybody.
seek to separate any of the witnesses or admonish them that they are not to be in each other's presence and discuss the facts of the case before you had an opportunity to interview them?
No.
And as you sit here, you have no idea, when you were not in their presence, you have no idea what the occupants of that house were discussing
Correct.
or what they were doing.
I have no idea what they were doing.
Was
Just
there
hold
a
on.
pineapple on the door?
Given the fact that you were the first law enforcement officer inside the house, did you seek to photograph anything inside the house?
When you say I was the first law enforcement officer, I was with Sergeant Good. Both of us walked in at the same time.
That's fair. I don't mean to be vague, but you were sort of leading the discussion, correct, with the interviews?
Yes.
At least according to Sergeant Good, you were taking charge.
Sure.
As the first law enforcement officer to take charge inside the house, did you seek to photograph that?
No.
That location.
No, I did not.
Did you make any drawings or diagrams of the layout of the house?
No, I did not.
Did you note where the furniture was or was not?
I don't know what you mean.
Did you note in a diagram where furniture was? There's a dining room table here. It's got 6 chairs. There's a kitchen table over there.
No, I did not.
Did you note any document where the individuals were, the human beings were in relation to each other when you walked in the house?
Are you asking me where I were, or did I make a
I'm asking
diagram?
whether or not you documented that.
No.
Did you take any notes whatsoever? Like, did you write anything down?
Had you been told at the time that you went in the house that John Keith was found out in the yard that there was a shoe missing? His right shoe was missing?
No.
You didn't have that information yet?
I did not.
Did you subsequently learn that?
I learned that much later after we had already cleared the area.
Tell me what much later means. Days, hours, weeks?
I honestly couldn't give an exact answer on that.
I think I know the answer to this, but you didn't do any search for any missing clothing from the victim inside the house.
Okay, that's
I did not.
funny.
Last question on this, or last series of questions on this issue. You understand the importance of electronic devices in modern investigations, correct?
Yes.
iPads, cell phones, things of that nature.
Sure.
Because they can record things like photographs, videos, conversations, text messages, and emails.
And they record so much more. Like the fact that I just picked up my cell phone will be recorded as an event in my cell phone. Now that I, press the power button, that'll be recorded as an event. Me tilting it like this will be recorded as an event. All of these things, your cell phone is basically a little snitch that rides around in your pocket. And Yeah, so it's not just like your text messages, your emails, your all of that. Everything you do with your phone gets recorded.
Would you consider electronic devices relatively vital in modern law enforcement investigations?
I'm sorry, violent?
Vital.
Yes, yes.
They're critical
Why would you think he said violent?
items of evidence, right? It's like walking around with your entire life in your palm of your hand, correct?
Correct.
Did you seek to
No.
Did you ask for consent to look through their electronic devices, for instance, their cell phones, text messages, communications?
No.
Did you believe, well, turning back to a question that you were asked by Mr. Lally, you did in fact interview Brian Albert at the scene, correct?
Yes.
You also interviewed his wife?
Yes.
Did you believe at any point before you interviewed Mr. Albert that it was incumbent upon you to let your supervisors know that there may be a
Or you could also, just as a prank, get a bunch of pineapple stickers and put them on other people's doors.
conflict of interest because of a personal relationship that you had with the family?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you ever, in fact, not whether you believed it was important, but did you ever, in fact, notify any of your superiors at Canton PD or any other law enforcement agency that you had a personal relationship with the Albert family or members of the Albert family?
I do not.
You indicated that you believe you spoke to Mr. Albert and his wife, Nicole Albert, for maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Is that what you said?
Roughly.
Did you record that conversation?
I did not.
You had your cell phone with you, correct?
Yes.
You know that has recording capability?
Yes.
Was anybody else with Nicole? When I say with, I mean in earshot of Nicole and Brian Albert when you interviewed either one of them or both of them?
Jennifer McCabe.
So you interviewed them together?
Yes.
Which is stupid. You don't want to do that. So we didn't record it. The only witness to this is another witness.
Did you then interview Jennifer McCabe?
I had spoken to Jennifer McCabe outside, to the best of my memory. I believe once we were inside, I was able to get some more information from her based on the chronological order of events.
And
Don't talk to the police. It's a bad idea.
we're getting this information about the chronological order of events. That was within earshot of Brian Albert and Nicole Albert.
Yes.
So when you interviewed Brian Albert, Nicole and Jennifer McCabe were listening, correct?
Yes.
When you interviewed Nicole Albert, Brian Albert and Jennifer McCabe were listening.
Yes.
And when you got this chronological layout of the night before from Jennifer McCabe, Brian and Nicole were both listening.
Yes.
After you met with the three of them and interviewed them, you indicated that you came back. You'd already left and came back. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, so forgive me. When you came back, it was around 9 a.m.?
No. I came back just moments later.
Had you actually left? I may be a bit confused, so I apologize. Had you actually left and driven back to Canton PD?
No.
Okay, so you just came back in the house?
When Mr. McCabe entered the house?
No, I'm so sorry. I'm jumping ahead, so that's unfair. You left, now we're at the point where you've already cleared the crime scene.
Okay.
And then at some point you get called back.
Yes.
Because Ms. McCabe said she had additional information she wanted to impart.
Yes.
When you interviewed Ms. McCabe that second time, were Brian and Nicole Albert there?
Yes.
Were they within earshot?
Yes.
And they listened to that conversation as well?
Yes.
That's Zora in the background
After that
there.
conversation, did you meet with any other witnesses between February 29th, later in the day, January 29th, any time until February 4th?
No.
None?
No.
I do want to talk for a second, just a brief second, about setting up a crime scene outdoors. You indicated that the crime scene was relatively secure, was your word. It's relatively secure because there were...
It's all cluster F all the time
here. Around the perimeter
Yes.
of the yard, is that right?
That's correct.
Crime scene tape wasn't working because it was windy.
Crime scene tape was up, but it was being blown all over the place.
Okay. And of course, Canton PD has the ability to go get stakes and just hammer some stakes into the dirt if you wish to.
No.
You don't have stakes at Canton PD?
No,
I
we-
mean stakes. E-S-T-A-K-E-S.
I know what a stake is. No, we don't have any.
Canton PD don't have them.
I know what a stake is. It's like, sir, do you know what evidence tape is? Because, yeah, he's like, no, we don't have any stakes. Do you have a hardware store in the town of Canton? Do you have like a tent peg somewhere? Yeah, did you ask the neighbors for stakes?
No.
So if the crime scene tape was blown down, that was just sort of a let's give up on it. Wouldn't do any good.
No.
In your mind, it was futile.
The crime scene tape was futile, yes. It was left up until we made the determination to take it down, but it wasn't really doing its job.
All right. And once the scene was cleared,
Really, the crime scene tape wasn't really doing its job. There's a lot of that going around.
All those cruisers that were protecting that crime scene were now gone, right?
Yes.
And all the cruisers were gone by about 7:50 in the morning, 7:50, 7:55.
Yes.
So before 8 a.m., that crime scene was completely open. I'm sorry, after 8 a.m., that crime scene was completely open.
Yes.
Unsecured.
Yes.
And available to anybody who wanted access to it.
Correct.
One of the reasons to secure a crime scene is of evidence destruction on one hand, correct?
Yes.
And evidence tampering on the other hand, right?
Sure.
And examples.
Yeah, I mean, some rando could come on, and just, and I mean, the tampering doesn't even have to be intentional, right? Somebody could wander onto it and they've been drinking and they throw up in your crime scene. That's tampering. It's not intentional tampering. I mean, I assume it's not intentional tampering, but now you got a problem with a bunch of DNA everywhere. Fence off your crap. It's a murder of a police officer is what you've charged here. And it's like, we just wrapped it up early and released the scene. Like, are you kidding me?
Of evidence tampering could be just moving a piece of evidence.
Objection, Your Honor.
That's overruled. Just not too much further with this, though.
I've just got a couple of quick questions about this.
Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. An example, or a couple of examples of evidence tampering could be something as simple as moving a piece of evidence, moving it from here to here, correct?
That would be tampering, yes.
You already
Hiding
had
evidence,
dinner.
getting rid of it, right?
Yes.
Taking evidence out of the scene or putting evidence back into the scene, correct?
Yes.
Or even planting evidence that didn't exist before. All of those would be examples of tampering with evidence.
Yes.
And setting up a proper crime scene minimizes or eliminates the possibility for that.
Setting up a crime scene would, could you say that again, please?
Sure. Setting up a proper crime scene, securing a proper crime scene minimizes or tries to eliminate the possibility of that type of evidence tampering, obviously.
It would, but at this point in time, we weren't aware. At this point in time, state police had said they weren't responding. So there was no longer an area to preserve at that point.
So in your mind, well, let me phrase it a different way. What that means is after 8 a.m., that scene was just open.
It was.
You found
Thank you, Rob.
both the blood that we saw pictures of and the cocktail glass that we were just introduced to this morning, correct?
Yes.
You searched the area that was adjacent to where you believe the body was. Is that right?
We searched, I would say, about a 6x6 or 7x7 area.
This is basically this entire cross summed up. It's like, did you do a police work? No, we don't. Why would we do a police work? Did you do a different police work? Nah, that's not how we roll here. This is Canton. We just make it up as we go along. Like,
6x6 or 7x7?
I don't think these guys have even read a mystery novel. No, Mrs. Runkle doesn't spoil Zora as much as I spoil Zora. Mrs. Runkle, my acquaintance, is not in town today. She's off traveling today. So my acquaintance of over a decade,
roughly 6 feet on each side.
Right. You were looking for obviously anything that was out of place, anything that didn't belong.
Yes.
Like a man's size 12 shoe would have caught your attention.
It would.
A black baseball cap would have caught your attention.
It would.
Piece of plastic broken probably would have caught your attention.
Yes.
Certainly 45 pieces of plastic would have caught your attention.
Yes.
And between you and Officer Seraph, Sergeant Good, Officer Mulaney, Lieutenant Gallagher, none of that was found.
No, the only things we found were the things that were documented.
You did find the blood, however. Is that right?
Yes.
Who literally physically leaned down and scooped that blood up?
Me.
and who poked it with their finger? Which person was that? Because I got some questions for that person.
And that was done in a plastic solo cup that we've heard a little bit about.
Yes. Yes.
You're aware that those solo cups are unsealed?
I believe Lieutenant Gallagher got them out of a sealed package.
When I say unsealed, I mean they don't have a lid on them. They're not airtight containers.
Correct.
So once you scoop up the snow and the dirt and the debris and the grass and everything else, along with the blood, they're just open to the air.
Yeah, there was snow and blood. There was no dirt and debris in the class that I can recall.
You're sure about that?
Oh yeah, that perfectly clean snow.
There's no dirt and snow?
I didn't observe any, no.
You didn't observe any dirt and snow? You don't think there's dirt and snow?
I didn't observe any dirt in the glass. Excuse me, the cup.
Okay. Certainly wasn't a sterile cup.
No.
Certainly wasn't a crime scene cup.
No.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, the company that makes these things, you know, is not, these are not like medical instruments. These are frat boy instruments. Yeah.
You're aware that the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab warns against collecting any biological material in anything made of plastic, correct? Are you aware of that?
No.
I feel like the list of things he's not aware of about crime scene investigation is a very long list.
After when you scooped up the blood, did you videotape that process so we know exactly which blood stain was scooped up from where?
I don't recall if it was videotaped, but we did not document which scoop went in which cup.
Okay. So if there was multiple.
You didn't document which scoop went in which cup? Why wouldn't you? Listen, frat boys know enough to take a Sharpie and write their name on the side of the cup, and you're not documenting which scoop, which scoop goes in which cup. So Rob says, "Dear chat, these recaps are hard. Been there. It's a struggle. Don't forget to support your favorite creators for their efforts. My acquaintance Ian much appreciates it." And John Coleman says, "Time to roll pigeon business." I feel like that is correct, that we got to roll the pigeon business clip. Folks, if you have an animal, tell them to chill for a second. Pigeon business in 3, 2, 1. Yeah. Can't remember what chat it was, but her father worked for Solo Cup 20 years. Anyone who even drink from one, Agalia said yesterday. I think that was Emily's. So, yeah.
Multiple contributors of the blood, we sort of have no idea which blood drop belonged to whom, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Once these unsealed cups were in your possession, what did you do with them?
The cups were placed into the Toyota Tundra that I was driving that day and ultimately returned back to the police station.
Okay, and you talked a little bit about the process once you returned back to the station. They were put in a brown evidence bag, correct?
Yes.
And ultimately, when you log these items into the
evidence bag is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, because like when you go to the Stop and Shop, you're probably not buying evidence. I know I said this is a recap and we're basically just watching this because it was a very short day and
temporary, excuse me, the blood was put in temporary evidence refrigerator.
Okay, inside the evidence bag. Cups are still inside the evidence bag and it's logged in.
I don't recall that. I'm not sure if I took them out or not. I don't recall.
You indicated that there's an item number or property number that's assigned to them.
Yes.
There's generated a seal or a label to go on the evidence that's being stored, correct?
It should, yes.
And the bag is sealed. The evidence bag is sealed like this red tape that we see on this thing, correct?
When possible, there are certain items that can't be bagged, and then sometimes you create a tag and attach it to a tag.
Right, but if it's a brown paper bag that's an evidence bag, you certainly just fold over the edge of it and just put a red evidence seal on it to make sure that that's secure and not tampered with, correct?
That would be one way to do it, yes. I don't recall if I left them in the bag or took them out of the bag. I don't recall.
If you left them in the bag, you likely would have, if you're booking them into evidence, you likely would have used some red crime scene, not crime scene tape, evidence tape.
If I left them in the bag,
we're going to slow this right down here because, yeah.
I would have put the property label right on the bag.
So everybody could see it?
Yes.
Okay, there's an evidence bag with important evidence in it. Don't mess with it. It's secure, correct?
Yes.
So we have tab 23.
This is...
Do you recognize what's depicted in this exhibit?
I believe it's Miss Reed's vehicle.
And you see the missing plastic there.
For the record, you're looking at what's...
Now, I'm just going to note, this is the missing plastic, and this was clearly photographed after they took it to, like, its destination. So, yeah.
It's been previously marked as Exhibit 37. You see the little...
Lisa, happy to meet you at CrimeCon.
Down there by the right rear quarter panel.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go to tab 24.
This is the evidence bag.
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Did you see a bag sitting next to it?
I do.
Doesn't look like an evidence bag, does it?
No, it looks like a Stop and Shop bag.
Stop and
But
Shop.
actually, it looks like an evidence bag. It just doesn't say Canton Police on it. It says Stop and Shop, but it does look like an evidence bag. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing, really? Because this Stop and Shop bag clearly came from a Stop and Shop, and clearly you got it with something else in it. You know, like there was a hoagie in this or something, like a gas station sushi in this beforehand. And so it ain't the same thing in the same way that, like, sure, they're 2 paper bags, but this one was clearly used for shopping. And if you think that, like, unused and used are equivalent in terms of contamination, think about whether you would rather handle an unused condom versus a used condom. Yeah, the used bag is not the same.
That's a grocery bag.
It is. And that's exactly what our evidence bags look like. So that's what I thought it was at first.
Right, except it doesn't say anything about evidence on it. It says Stop and Shop, correct?
Correct.
What do you think's in that evidence bag? I'm sorry, Stop and Shop bag.
I'm not sure.
You were when these pictures were taken?
I could tell that it's the Canton Police Sally Port. So it's some point after the state police had seized the vehicle.
And at some point after you had brought the solo cups back to the station.
Correct.
Matter of fact, these were taken on February 1st when the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab finally took possession of these items of evidence, correct?
I was not in the police station for those 2 days.
Let's look at the next tab, tab 25. You recognize that?
I'm just still astounded that he's trying to defend the reused bag. Like,
It appears to be Solo cups with substance inside.
Are those just any solo cups or the solo cups that you took back to the station from 34 Fairview?
I mean, I couldn't say definitively, but it certainly looks like it.
It appears that they have red liquid.
you said pretty definitively yesterday, like as recently as yesterday, you acknowledged that these were the solo cups with the bloody snow that you took into evidence. So why is it that now you can't say definitively? Like, did you forget yesterday? Did you have other cups of blood at the police station? Like, are there more than one bag full of cups of blood at the police station such that there could be confusion about this? Because if so, that just raises more questions, not less. Like,
Material floating in the bottom?
Yes.
Appear to be blood?
The top three I can see. Yeah. The only two I see that don't have it are the bottom two left.
Okay. Let's look at the next tab, which is 26. And do you see somebody with gloved hands opening that bag? Same bag.
the gloves again.
I do.
Okay. That appear to be the same 6 solo cups?
That you just showed me in the previous slide?
Yes.
Yes.
So are those the same 6 solo cups that you gathered at the scene at 34 Fairview and ultimately brought back to Canton PD?
They certainly appear like they are, but I can't say definitively, but they appear to be.
Oh,
Sorry, I
come
didn't mean to stop
on.
your
Just
work.
say,
Appreciate it.
like,
They appear to be the same solo cups, but I couldn't say definitively.
Let's go back to tab 24. And the reason you can't say definitively, Lieutenant, is because there is no label on this bag, is there?
Not on that side of it, no.
There is no property number on this bag, is there?
Not on the side that's visible to me, no.
There's no evidence tape on this bag, is there?
Not on the side that's visible to me, no.
Well, let's look at the other photographs. Well, before we do that, are you suggesting that all of that material is on the other side of this bag?
I don't know. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you I don't know.
Okay, let's look at the next tab. Looking at it from the top, does it appear anywhere from that vantage point that there's evidence tape that's ever been put on that bag, that has ever been secured?
I wouldn't be able to tell you that.
Well, one of the ways that you can tell that evidence tape has been put on an item.
you know how you could tell if there's evidence tape on an item is, do you see the freaking evidence tape? Because if you don't see evidence tape, then there's no evidence tape on it. One of the rules of evidence tape is that you only ever add evidence tape. You don't take evidence tape off. What I mean by that is that if I, let's say this Solo cup was evidence. You put it into an evidence bag, right? Cool. You tape the evidence bag shut. But then we have to go into it. Like, this evidence bag has been taken, sealed from the officer who seized it, and then it gets taken over to, it gets taken off to, the crime lab. They're going to do DNA testing, right? So obviously, when it gets to the DNA lab, they have to open up the evidence bag. They will take a knife, they will slit open the evidence tape, they will open it, retrieve the thing. When they're done with it, they will put the thing back in, they will put new tape over it, and they will write stuff down on the evidence tape. So that what you end up with is a list of every time that this thing has been opened. The evidence tape is itself a record. The evidence tape is itself a form of auditable record in the proceedings. So the way you can tell there's not been any evidence tape put on it is there's no fucking evidence tape on it. Because if your department is putting evidence tape on and taking evidence tape off, they would have to be so incompetent as to be, oh shit, we're talking about the Canton Police Department. Okay, maybe.
Is because when the evidence tape is placed on it, it's completely sealed. And if in fact that seal is ever broken, it's not torn off, it's cut, and there's initials put on, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Have you ever used evidence tape before? To seal anything?
I'm sure I have. I don't recall off the top of my head.
A big long pause, and he's like, probably, but I can't remember. You're a detective and you can't remember if you've used evidence tape ever? This is like a basic tool of the trade. This is like asking a soldier, have you ever used a rifle for anything? It's like asking the judge if she's ever sighed in her life. Like the basic tools of the trade.
How long have you been a detective? I'm sorry, how long were you a detective when you were a detective?
I was a detective for 11 months as a sergeant, and then I was a detective for 15 months back in 2011-12.
And
so more than 2 years of detectiving, and he never dealt with evidence? He never evidenced in that 2 years? Like, what were you doing as a detective? Like, did you just kind of arrive at work and lock yourself in a closet and hope no one wondered where you were?
Your experience and how long have you been a police officer?
Over 24 years.
So in your 24 years of experience and over a year as a detective, you can't remember if you've ever used evidence sealing tape?
As I said, I'm sure I have. I just can't recall one off the top of my head.
If you recall using it at all, isn't the protocol that when evidence sealing tape is used to seal an item of evidence, when it's removed, it's not torn off, it's cut, and then new sealing tape is put over it with an initial and a date, correct?
Objection.
Do you know the answer to that?
I don't.
Okay, next question.
Thank you.
He doesn't know how you use evidence tape. Okay.
That's all I have for this.
Okay, I'm going to see counsel at sidebar for just a minute, please.
And when they say just a minute, they mean like 5 minutes, I think.
Back in session, you may be seated.
All right, Mr. Jackson, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all I have at this time.
Okay. Mr. Lally?
So you might be saying, why'd he get up there at all if that's all he has to say? Because they had that big lengthy sidebar. He gets up and the judge says, go ahead. And he says, no more questions. And you might be saying, why'd he do that? Well, because you have to, right? You have to get up and say for the record, I'm done with this witness. It's like, you're taking a step. And I can tell you, I have had the experience. It sucked. Of saying no more questions for this witness and taking about 2 steps. And then I went, wait, I got one more question. And the judge says, sit down, Mr. Runkle, you've released the witness. And I went, shit. I won that on other grounds, but it would have been a bad thing to have forgotten that question if I had lost. So now, no lawyering is perfect. But, you don't release a witness until you're done, right? So clearly he might have had other questions, but I think that the judge said in the sidebar, you can't answer this. I would love to go through the sidebars on this and get some further details. But for right now, this is all we get. Now, Mr. Lally, with the attempt to save.
You were asked about from August of 2002. You explain, in your own words, what happened?
So I had left the establishment, Centerfields is what it was called at the time, and the owner had asked me if I could drive a patron home who had too much to drink, so I obliged. Walked across the street to the parking lot, got in my truck with the patron, and as I was pulling out, that's when Mr. Albert approached my truck and told me how he had been in an altercation earlier in the evening with Mark Lapalato, and that Mark had made threats towards him and his family, that he was going to harm his family. They had a young child at the time. Mr. Albert was concerned and asking me what he should do. Excuse me. As I was telling him what I think he should do, he said something to the effect of, "Oh no, here they come."
We're at 1 1/4.
I observed multiple men walking down the sidewalk in our direction. At this point, I got out of my truck, approached the
Because I was feeling hungry and I wanted to bite some people.
Group and pleaded with them. I said, guys, not tonight. He's by himself. He's with his wife, girlfriend.
Guys,
There's not going to be a fight tonight. And I did my best to diffuse the situation. But they
wait. He's with his wife. I mean, girlfriend. I hope that he's confused the status as opposed to he's confused the people. Because if he's confused the people, that's a very different statement. So we'll just move on.
Weren't having it. They made several attempts to push past me. Ultimately, a wrestling match ensued. Mr. Lapalato at one point said, I know who you are. I don't give a fuck. And asked me what I was going to do about it. A wrestling.
And that's when I bit him. Nom nom. What are you going to do about it?
Match ensued. I was punched. And at that point, I defended myself and did engage in a physical altercation with Mark.
Now, you were asked about sort of timing of reports. You didn't write a report until a couple days later, is that correct?
That's correct.
Why was that?
I had spoken to the shift supervisor that night, and I asked him if he wanted me to return and generate a report at that point. And he advised me that I could do it the next time I was at work, which was...
I should clarify. I don't know for certain if he bit the guy. I just heard from previous days that the biting was an allegation here, and the biting is hilarious. So, yeah, I'm just like kind of envisioning maybe a sequel to Ravenous here. Who's seen the movie Ravenous? Because we could do a sequel set in Canton.
A couple of days later.
And as far as the police responding to that parking lot that night, how were they notified if you know?
I had yelled across the street when the group was trying to push its way past me. I yelled across the street to the bartender and the owner had made their way, excuse me, out onto the sidewalk street area. I yelled across the street and I said, call the police, and they ultimately called 911.
Now, what, if any, relevance or factor did any of that have in your minds in regard to your response?
They're not going to retry anything else.
That you did on January 29th, 2022.
Absolutely nothing.
And in fact, that involved Christopher Albert in 2002, correct?
Yes, it did.
And you were at Brian Albert's residence in 2022, correct?
Correct.
And just to be clear, just because their last name is Albert, they're separate people. You have separate relationships with each of those persons, correct?
Correct.
Now, you grew up in the town, you work in the town. Fair to say you go to calls regarding people that you know,
Yes.
whether that be witnesses, people that you arrest, any of the like, correct?
Correct.
Now, with regard to the questions that you were asked about Mr. O'Keefe, just to be clear, you never laid eyes on Mr. O'Keefe's body at any point in time on January 29th or thereafter, correct?
No, I didn't.
You were asked some questions about on the cruiser cam video, whether you were on the phone. You indicated that you could make an educated guess as to who you were on the phone with. Who would that be?
Lieutenant Gallagher.
And so at the time that you're on the phone from that video, Lieutenant Gallagher was not on scene yet, correct?
Correct.
Now, with respect to the weather on that day, talk a bit about sort of the weather as you were on.
Was it snowing? We've established that it's snowing. We haven't established a cause of death for Mr. Yeah. I think we skipped over this. I'll get to it. I'll talk about it.
Scene during the time that you're on scene, did it essentially persist in the same manner?
Yes.
And then later on that day, what if any change occurred with regard to the weather?
We'll talk about that at the end. I'm going to flag it.
As I recall, while we were there, it stayed the same. It was, if anything, it might have gotten even worse.
And from your memory of that day, did that continue throughout the course of the day while you were working?
Yes.
Now, with regard to in the house at 34 Fairview Road, each of those occasions, if you could, with respect to the 3 occasions that you went inside the house to speak to people, where were those people within the house?
The first time I went in, Brian Albert and Nicole Albert were located, I believe, on the stairs or sitting possibly at some point on the stairs. Jen McCabe was to my right. The second time I went back in, excuse me, was also through the front door. And it was the same positioning, except this time Matt McCabe was present, and Matt was also to my right.
And then on the third occasion, when yourself and Lieutenant Gallagher came back to speak to Ms. McCabe further?
We went in through the door to the right, so it's to the right of the main door. We went in through that door and stayed in like the dining kitchen area, and that's where I spoke with Jennifer.
And that third time that you went back and you spoke with Jennifer, where was Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Matthew McCabe, any of those parties that were there before? If you know.
They were present. I actually don't recall if Matthew McCabe was there the third time. Brian and Nicole were definitely there. I believe they were in the general vicinity, but I couldn't tell you exactly where they were.
And same thing when you went back on that third occasion, what, if anything, did you note as far as the interior of the house, anything askew, anything out of place?
No, everything looked to be in order.
Nothing further on.
May we approach very briefly?
Yes.
All right, so now they're having a further sidebar. Sidebars, by the way, have the worst drinks.
Mayor, Your Honor.
Yes.
Very briefly, Lieutenant Lank, you indicated that you claimed in your description that you were assaulted by the Leader brothers, correct?
Yes.
The fact is, they were never convicted of anything having to do with this case, the case that you're describing. Isn't that true?
Correct.
You also indicated that they made either a threatening comment to you or a disparaging comment to you about, I don't give a fuck, correct?
Correct.
Is it true that what was actually said was you said to them, I don't know who you are, but I'm going to make your life miserable?
No.
Okay, so she said you will not talk about how they were acquitted because they could be acquitted for any number of reasons, which I think is fucking stupid because any of the number of reasons for which you are acquitted, all of those all of the reasons for which you are acquitted, whether it's a witness doesn't show up, whether it's a witness literally dies. I've had that where like there's a witness who can place your client at the scene and they die, so they can't testify. So, you know, any of these things, all of those things result in the presumption, the legal presumption of innocence. So, if you're not acquitted, you are presumed to be innocent. I don't care how it happens. So why can't they say, hey, this person was acquitted? Now, she said you can't actually ask, you can't ask that. And during the original testimony, he didn't ask it. But he noted, like, this creates a problem. Buddy was charged, and then you don't say he was acquitted. So what does that suggest happened? It suggests he was convicted, because otherwise, why wouldn't the defense lawyer ask that shit? So now they had this sidebar just now. Just now they had a sidebar. And the defense lawyer comes back and is like, isn't it the case they weren't convicted? And he's like, yep. So, the defense lawyer got that in. I think he won that issue on the sidebar. I think he went back on the sidebar and said, I really think I have to ask this question. I think the jury is going to be misled. And that I think he went and said, Lolly opened the door. Lolly opened the door to it, and the judge went, yeah, he kind of did. He kind of did. So in it goes. Serious point for the defense. Serious point for the defense on that one. So, yeah. Excellent on the excellent defense work there, because he didn't let the issue go and he got the question he needed.
All of this incident was in furtherance of you protecting a member of the Albert family when they asked for your help, correct?
No, it was me protecting someone who asked for my help, who was clearly in fear.
Who happened to be in Albert.
Happened to be in Albert.
Thank you.
All right, you are all set. Thank you, Lieutenant. You're all set, sir. Let's try and get some testimony from one more witness.
Yes.
And jurors, we will break right at 1, but let's see if we can get more testimony, please. Who's your next?
Now, we have another witness, and I can tell you, I recorded zero information about this other witness. So let's go and have a look at this guy.
During the case now, here, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Thank you.
I have like no notes because this guy was basically, literally, I have notes. New guy, lieutenant, 9 years. Those are my notes about this dude. He's just super uninteresting.
Found at 34 Fairview Road.
Oh, yes, it is. At some point, did you learn what his name was?
Yes.
And who did you learn?
Mr. John O'Keefe.
And were you familiar with Mr. O'Keefe?
I had never met him before, no.
At some point, did you become aware of where he lived?
Yes.
And from what you had learned from Sergeant Goods, in addition to Mr. O'Keefe being transported from the scene to the hospital, who, if anyone else, was transported from the scene to the hospital?
I was advised that his girlfriend was on the scene as well, and she was subsequently transported to Good Samaritan Hospital, the same hospital that Mr. O'Keefe was transported to.
And at some point over the course of that morning, did you become aware of any children that Mr. O'Keefe was responsible for as far as legal guardianship?
Yes, I was made aware that he was the guardian of 2 young children that may or may not be at the house at that time unattended, given the fact that both he and his girlfriend were transported.
Based on that information, what, if anything, did you decide to do?
So basically, he goes to check on the kids. That's what he does.
I'm not sure if it was a suggestion of the former chief or if it was just something that organically developed, but it seemed like the right thing to do a well-being check on the children at One Meadows Ave, which was Mr. O'Keefe's residence.
And just with respect to the former chief specifically, who are you talking about?
Ken Berkowitz.
And a well-being check, if you could describe to the jury, sort of what is involved in that and what does it entail as it applies to this situation?
As it applies to this situation, we believe that there may be 2 young unattended children, and knowing that both Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed wouldn't be returning to the house anytime soon, we wanted to check on them so that if they woke up and wonder where everybody was and need some assistance, that perhaps we could provide that and help locate other loved ones or bring them to the police station if we had to, just to kind of provide some sort of comforting presence.
And within the Canton Police Department, is there a specific cruiser that's allocated for sort of the shift supervisor?
Yes, 682.
And is that the cruiser that you used to go to One Meadows Ave?
We did.
And when you say we, who, if anyone, went with you?
Sergeant Lehan and I. He was the incoming sergeant.
And what, if any, role does Sergeant Lehan have with regard to the department, specifically?
Now he's a detective sergeant and prosecutor. At that time, he was a shift sergeant.
And so the 682 cruiser that you were driving, are you aware that that has a cruiser camera fixed to it?
Correct.
Have you had occasion to review that footage from that particular cruiser on that particular morning?
I have now, yes.
Your Honor, if I could ask to publish for the jury a portion of Exhibit 41.
Okay.
Gentlemen, if I could have that on the screen, if I could ask Ms. Gilman if you could fast forward to 2 hours, 3 minutes, and 53 seconds. And what's up on the screen right now, Lieutenant? Do you recognize what that is?
That'd be the interior of Sallyport Door 3, which is where the 682 would have been parked.
And then from there is where you drove from that position to One Meadows Ave, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if you could just run for 5 minutes.
All right, so we got the dash cam. He's leaving the Sallyport. So wait, was this him leaving the cell, or is this his house? Because there's like 2 barbecues there. Yeah, this has got to be the police department, the Sallyport. Why do they have 2 barbecues? That's kind of interesting. Is this another blizzard?
Gentlemen, if you could pause it there. Ms. Gilman, if you could, I would ask you to...
This doesn't look like a blizzard. This just looks like an old movie where it's like sepia tone and you've got some film grain.
Fast forward to about 2 hours, 9 minutes, and 25 seconds.
All right, so we don't need to see the entire drive. Awesome.
If you could play from there, please.
I feel like this is the kind of town that you could set a Lovecraft movie in. Like, you wouldn't be super shocked to hear that there was like a cult operating here trying to, bring some great old one into the world to eat all of humanity.
What's up on the screen, Lieutenant? Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
One Meadows Ave.
And sort of toward the middle of the screen, is that sort of a front door to the home? Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
The door that you went to, is that the door, or did you go to a different door? If you know.
I don't remember which door we went to.
We're going to skip.
Now, with respect...
that was the wrong button.
To this home, had you ever been there before?
No.
Subsequent to this, did you come to learn also that the residents of One Meadows...
Skipping ahead a little bit.
Yes.
And as far as when you went to knock on the door, are you just knocking on the front door and then no one answers and that's it? Or you look around the house? What is it that you do on a well-being check?
His house is about
go
10
to the
minutes
front
away,
door
I
or the
think.
door that you think everyone would use in a whatever the situation was. You take a cursory glance around to see if there's any reason to check anywhere else. In this case, it's a fenced backyard, so I'm not going to be going back there. Because if in this case we weren't looking for someone that might be a dead body, we were looking for 2 children that would be up and active.
You hope.
Now, as far as that vehicle that's parked in the driveway in front of you, did you have any reason to look at it, inspect it, or anything like that at this point that you're at the house?
No.
And as far as any condition of it, specifically the right rear passenger side, you didn't have any occasion to go inspecting that or looking at it at that point, correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as from this video.
So they went to the house looking for kids.
The driveway when you pulled up, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if you could hit play.
Now, is that the Lexus on the right? Or no, would that be it on the left there? I'm trying to see if we can see if...
You could pause right there, Mr. So the individual just sort of walked across the front of the cruiser. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And who was that?
That was me.
I think they're suggesting that the light was broken
sure how.
here, that the tail light was broken on the...
Can we approach?
Because it does look different on the left there. So they're saying, hey, it was broken before we seized it. That's a big thing for the prosecution there.
Lieutenant, we're going to need you back tomorrow. We're going to break for today.
Okay.
So, jurors, that's it. You can stay just for a minute, please. That's it for today. We'd ask those same 3, or I give you those same 3 cautions. Please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation. All
right, so that's that. We're gonna... I don't think they do anything other than just fan after that, so we'll just pull that down. Thilo Agde says, I've been to Canton. Don't go there. Seriously. I hear you. I hear you on that one. Yeah. So this whole thing is weird. This is like some of the worst policing that you have ever seen. So, and I see Sarah says, but that matches what the defense argued too. They said she hit John's truck on her way out of the driveway. We haven't seen that yet in the evidence, but we'll see that maybe, going forward, because defense hasn't called any evidence yet. The defense is just cross-examining, and certainly the prosecution is not going to call evidence of that having happened. So, yeah. So basically what we have today is blood in solo cups, blood stored in the Sally port where anybody could get access to it, blood stored in the temporary refrigerator where anybody could get access to it, car stored in the Sally port where anybody could get access to it. What else? Oh, and we don't use evidence tape, apparently, as like a 2-year detective. So, I heard naked photos of Runkle will be submitted as evidence in this case. No, because if they had those, they would probably be like horrified and, everybody would have lost sanity points if they had that. So, do I expect a directed verdict when state rests? I mean, if they rested now, I would expect that, but we'll have to see. I mean, the state's got time to call a case. They got like 8 weeks, so they've got some time to figure out that they're calling a case. What is it? Why can stores in Canada sell illegal knives? They can't, but they do because nobody knows they're illegal. All right, let's go through some super chats here. Lauren Elizabeth says, who, if anyone, was sort of driving the ambulance? Yeah, that was such a bizarre question. Vez from Quebec, I'm getting addicted to these recaps. Love you all. Likewise. DK Cripple, EDB during the day, Runkle at night for 8 weeks. It might be a long slug. I may die. We'll have to see. Rainman YYC, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. Tammy Fayette, thank you. Cheers, Ian. Much appreciated. Kelly's Corner, the Bloody Mary is gross. Clamato may be better. Clamato has a umami flavor to it. It's much tastier. I don't like a Bloody Mary. I do like a Caesar. Lee Koo, thank you so much. Golux5, thank you so much for the YouTube membership. That looks like is that a cross stitch of a Death's Head moth? That is pretty cool. Marvin CZ, 1 year. Yay, I'll be on replay, but came to say hi. Hello, Marvin. Michael deleted, except for the sighing, the judge seems very good. There's moments when the judge annoys me. There's moments when she seems like she's doing a really good job. It's hard to weigh. Marvin CZ, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. And same from Fiona W. Thank you so much. Scott Roach, is today's soundtrack going to be the Benny Hill music, or is it the entrance of the gladiators? Yeah, what's the theme to like the Barnum and Bailey Big Top? Rainman YYC, Ian, you have to help me. I'm suffering from a serious deficiency of legal snark. I am told that I am rich in legal snark. Casey Cat, happy birthday, Queen of the Law Nerds, EDB. Yes, it is EDB's birthday, I've heard, so happy birthday, EDB. Wetfoot1313, the more cops that talk, the more questions I have. Yeah, like, what the is a question. Vez from Quebec, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. Ramona, thank you for the new membership. Sky Ricky, thank you for the new membership. Tough Cookie, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. Billy's Momzilla, could the sloppy mishandling of evidence cause other cases to be reopened? In a better world, maybe it won't. They won't reopen any cases. Tina says, how come they're not specifying their objections? The judge doesn't want them to do that in front of the jury. And so they just object. The judge knows what the objection is about because the judge has a lawyer background. And when there's doubt, she brings people up. Or when somebody wants to ask a question or to argue the issue, they go up. But none of that happens, at that point. Police and first responders in Boston should get help. They all have liabilities. Lol. They could use some remedial training. Pegwardo, if the judge hadn't made them change all the exhibit numbers, they wouldn't be so slow either. Point. Celine says, I'm sick right now, so the recaps are appreciated. That is rough. Casey Cat says, Ian, do you think Proctor will just plead the 5th for his whole testimony because of his Fed investigation? I don't know. It's possible. We'll see. John Coleman, Goose Gander, how many levels below pigeon business is that? Kaylee H, OG report given at arraignment. Second came at the discovery. Interesting. Melanie Pare, something is rotten in Denmark. You got the accent in there. I love it. Lisa BS, judge has major control issues, in my opinion. A judge should have some control issues. They should keep control over their court. We've seen some proceedings where they just kind of run roughshod over the judge, and I don't like that. So, yeah. Yogurt the Magnificent, welcome aboard. Alan Fortenberry, so they gave her the reports, but she didn't look. I guess. It sounds like she may not have gotten them. Sometimes miscommunications happen. Greg, this is all feeling more and more like those small town corruption stories you see on weekly whodunit dramas where everyone is in on it. It could be a Murder on the Orient Express kind of day here. Sentient Dreamer, in the Murdaugh trial, courts were heavily biased towards law enforcement officers. Didn't go well for Murdaugh. I'm wondering if folks get tired of this collusion. Yeah. Tracy Fagan says they had a lot of promotions in the last 2 years. Well, they had an opening with an officer dying, I guess. I don't know. Vomit Fountain, it's the hold my beer and watch this method of evidence gathering. Very scientific. I mean, that would be why they had the red Solo cup. Winter, the Sleepy Juror, thank you for the new membership there. John Duncan, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. Lady Draconis, for your alcohol and Solo cup evidence collection fund. I was actually surprised. These things are not cheap. I'm surprised at how much Solo cups cost these days. Nothing is cheap these days. Sky Ricky, how much approximately will Karen get billed for legal fees? Hundreds of thousands. It's going to be well into 6 figures. I'm certain of that. So, yeah. Tracy Fagan, if I was the state CSI, I would not have accepted it in the cups and bag. It would just be like, Yeah, this is no good. Yeah. Rainman YYC, secured. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Love it. Love the Princess Bride reference. Mrs. Runkle and I both love Princess Bride. To be fair, Mrs. Runkle loves Princess Bride more than I do. And she's the person who got me on to Princess Bride. I think it was early in our relationship. She basically said, if we're going to be together, you have to watch this movie. And I was like, okay. And then after watching it, it was like, that is a good movie. She's like, no, it is the greatest movie of all time. And you will never criticize it. I was like, okay. And now sometimes we just communicate in Princess Bride quotes. It is a thing that happens on occasion. So Duchess of Dissent, thank you for the YouTube membership. Andel Feinstein, I promise not to use the information gained here for real life crime. I can't say said information will not appear in a crime or thriller manuscript. Fair. Throw me a mention in the honorable mentions section there. If you do, that would be awesome. William Sladden, glasses. We had mason jars. I've been to that party too. That party could sometimes end badly, especially if the booze comes in mason jars too. But before you pour it into your particular glass, yeah. Bad decisions come out of mason jars. I'm just gonna say that right now. Spicy Biscuit Energy. I can't take anyone in that town seriously. I feel like I'm watching Fargo. I think I brought this one up before. Fargo had much better police. I hope the jury has watched LawTube. I doubt it. I think that they'd get bounced from the jury if they did. Emily Goonan, thank you so much for the super sticker. Johnny Osprey, the Canton Police Department would like to reassure the public that the grocery bag and red Solo cups are part of our green policing initiative. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Oh, yeah, some things should not be reused. Some things should be single-use plastics. Allison, thank you for the super sticker. Alan Fortenberry. So one question I think the jury would love to hear would be, did you do anything to secure the scene and ensure that no evidence was taken and nothing was introduced? They got that question. That was asked. And the answer was super unsatisfying because it was like, yeah, we blocked off the scene for 2 hours, was it? So yeah. Haley Mouse, maybe they think he bent to pick the glass up and bam. I mean, possibly. The World Wonders, apparently the Canton police were good little boys and girls, so the evidence fairy came and sprinkled some taillight fragments on the scene overnight. The evidence fairy should not be a thing, but that is funny as hell. Linda M, thanks Ian for doing these recaps. Thank you for joining me. From One Adam, did anyone bother to check for home security cameras near the house where the body was found? Listen, they don't do police work here. This is not like an investigating kind of town. They formed their conclusion and then they just wrapped it up. That was it. Runkle, loving the snark. You were all the wanking officer. Melanie Perez says they did get 21 inches total that day. Again, that might be why they needed the safe word. Moving on. Christine D was so focused on a fix that he didn't notice hysterical Karen. Everyone commented on her screaming and he doesn't remember seeing her. That is weird. Spicy Biscuit Energy says, I can't take anyone that works in that town seriously. I feel like I'm watching Fargo. Yep. Except she was good at her job. Hog Banana, no, you've had enough Scotch Fund and Solo Cup Fund. This is Zora Treats Fund because she asked so nicely. Zora is super cute. And Zora later is going to get some snuggles because I need a nap. I have been struggling for a nap. And yes, 10 out of 10 movie, solidly. It's one of my top 10 movies. It's not my favorite movie, but it's top 3 for me especially because, it's nice to be able to have a movie that you could just always sit and watch with Mrs. Runkle. So when KPT says left a town like this, it's full of corruption. Yep. Sharon Cotter, thank you so much for the super sticker. And Great Dane Mom. I don't know why it's not starring some of these. I got to figure that out. Had to take time out to talk to my bestie in Massachusetts. Love your coverage. Bestie says, free Karen Reed. Stay clear of the guys on the job. And Becky Dog Lover says, not punching in tomorrow. I'm activating myself. Fair. 2.5 weeks left for prosecution until the defense case starts. Angie Torres, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. Against the Tide says Runkle, we already covered this. You were not allowed to die. Why is StreamYard not auto-starring this? I'm the one with thrift store glasses, swear. I gotta see. Why is it not auto-starring? Why are you not auto-starring? Did I lose the auto-starring? Auto-starring went away. I need to ask somebody about this because auto-starring went away. That's awful. And it seems to have happened midstream. I don't get it. So if I missed, Kate may be totally unrelated, but the Canton police chief hit a pedestrian in a reflective vest recently. I don't know, seems to align with their attention to detail to me. If I missed your super chat today, I am sorry because it appears that StreamYard, it's very Stephen King. This wasn't starred. It appears that StreamYard has gone psycho on me or has forgotten to do the essential thing of starring the super chats. So that's a problem. Melanie Perez says, again, this one wasn't starred. I thought it was very interesting to learn that Higgins showed up at work around 1:30 a.m. that night. Yeah. I'm not happy about the StreamYard thing because I hope I'm not missing anything here. I'm just like, CG with the heart. I missed that. That was not starred. I don't get it. All right. I don't know why, but StreamYard seems to have gone. Peter Tragos couldn't star today either. It's Did you know there's at least one Princess Bride board game night with the wife? I may have to try to find that. All right. So before I miss too many more super chats, I think we're going to wrap this up. There's going to be more of this trial. It's crazy. And it's nuts. So we will see what happens as we go, but the prosecution needs to figure things out. EE saying you missed my super chat. I'm sorry, EE. I will try to find it. I just don't know how. EE, just like drop what was your super chat just as a chat, because I'll try to pull that up. Because KPT is saying, did I do date night? I did not do date night because Mrs. Runkle is not in town. I missed your second as well. I'm sorry. It's StreamYard just not flagging it. EE and Belle Feinstein, if you just say what you wanted to say, I'll pull it up, because I don't want anyone to feel ripped off. I just StreamYard is causing me trouble. There will probably be a recap tomorrow, assuming that something doesn't come up. We'll just have to figure all that out. I'm really sorry about the super chats issue. So let me just see here. Some that I missed. JR says, I'm irritated that voir dire gave him a warning. It happens. It's a thing. Let's see. Just trying to track all this down. Let's see. EE. Just waiting on that comment there, just so I can get that in before we cover it off. Oh, it looks like it might be found here. I missed Patty Hoffman saying Potter Treat Fund because Zora gets all the attention ensued in. Merle Lewis says, at least we have no Ferengi discussing females. Yep, that was creepy. Fiona W says, to support your effort and for pupper treats. Thank you. She appreciates it. Lisa S says, came here from EDB. I've really enjoyed you and your wit. Hope to meet you at CrimeCon. Likewise, Lisa. Looks like we found EE's super chat here. She said, or he said, Ian, appreciate your time and detailed explanation. Thank you so much, EE. Rob Lawn Lumber said, Stop and Shop is synonymous with evidence, apparently. So thank you. Billy's Momzilla says, my heart goes out to the poor man who passed. Absolutely. He deserved better. He deserved better investigation and so forth. My heart goes out to his family and to his kids. I hope his kids are okay. And Annabelle Feinstein, looks like your second super chat there. I write thrillers. In my humble opinion, I could have done this better, even without the proper stuff. No Stop and Shop bags for sure. I've read about this stuff, and YouTube keeps making me edit what I'm trying to say. Thank you so much there. And MJ, he used the evidence bag, moved to the Stop and Shop bag. No, it was just the Stop and Shop bag. There was no evidence bag. It was just a Stop and Shop bag. That's it. That's all. That's all they've got. So hopefully that's all the missed super chats, because yeah, I don't want to miss super chats. I was really relying on on StreamYard to catch them. And I guess if this is going to be a thing, I'm going to have to keep my eyes open and star them manually. But all right. I'm going to wrap things up. I am still not getting proper sleep, so I'm going to lay down and probably not sleep, but try to nap. And yeah, Zorro will get some snuggles. She'll get some treats. Potter will get some treats. Potter's a little camera shy. He is... Potter's kind of feeling sulky right now because Mrs. Runkle is away, so he's just kind of mostly sleeping on the couch, except when he wants to play. So earlier he was running around, and we ran around in the backyard. He's a big dog. He's got a big face, like big jowls, like big, and so he's a lot of fun. Mojoan, thank you so much for the YouTube membership, and I will wear a different colored shirt. Okay. All right. I am going to wrap this all up here. See you guys next time. And yeah, have a good day. Now, where's my outro? It's not the pigeon business outro, though maybe it should be. Here it is.